Hey guys, tonight we are stepping very carefully into Victorian England, a place where the tea is strong, the collars are stiff, the streets are busy, the curtains are heavy, and almost every household object seems to have been designed by someone who believed comfort should first prove its moral character. This is a world of coal smoke, gas lamps, horse traffic, calling cards, servant bells, cold wash water, crowded rooms, railway whistles, mourning clothes, patent medicines, parlour games, seaside bathing machines, and wallpaper so cheerful it may be making a private arrangement with your lungs. On the surface, Victorian England can look wonderfully cosy. There are glowing fires, polished boots, shop windows full of ribbons and sweets, Christmas cards on the mantelpiece, railway trips to the coast, families gathered around the piano, and respectable people sitting in drawing rooms with the grave seriousness of those who know exactly where the cake forks belong. But just behind that lace curtain, everyday life becomes much stranger. You are entering a society deeply proud of progress, while still arguing about drains, germs, women's nerves, children's work, public manners, city smells, and whether grief has been worn for a socially acceptable number of months. The Victorians build railways, museums, factories, schools, public parks, libraries, sewers, and entire systems of etiquette so detailed that even your umbrella may need to consider its reputation. They are not strange because they are foolish. Most are simply trying to live inside a century changing faster than the furniture can be moved. Cities swell, machines roar, streets fill with carts and cabs. Shops become brighter, medicine improves unevenly, science advances, respectability tightens its gloves, and ordinary people still need clean water, warm rooms, affordable food, safe streets, decent work, family affection, and some explanation for why the hallway smells like the drains have developed opinions. Of course, Victorian life is not one single experience. A duchess in a London drawing room, a maid below stairs, a clerk in Manchester, a mill girl in Lancashire, a fisherman's wife in Cornwall, a child in a crowded schoolroom, a shopkeeper in Whitechapel, a farm labourer, a factory owner, a widow in Bath, and a crossing sweeper in the rain, all meet the century from very different doors. Class, money, gender, region, work, law, housing and health shape almost everything. Still, across Victorian England, many customs and discomforts become normal enough that people simply arrange themselves around them, usually while wearing several more layers than the weather politely requested. So tonight, we are going to wander gently through that world. We will wake in a bedroom dimmed by coal smoke, meet the chamber pot before breakfast, wash at a stand with water cold enough to improve your posture, dress in clothing that requires planning, step into a street ruled by horses, leave calling cards like tiny paper diplomats, shop beneath glittering windows, sit in a schoolroom, pass the workhouse, visit a chemist's counter, worry about bright sweets, observe mourning customs, attend a séance without promising the table anything, and finally return to bed beneath heavy blankets while the gas lamps glow outside. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the parts of history that textbooks tend to sweep under the rug, possibly because the rug is full of soot, dust, and several social expectations no one wanted to explain, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No pressure. Victorian England already contains enough pressure, much of it applied by corsets, employers, relatives, rent, etiquette manuals, and chairs that look as if they are quietly disappointed in you. And leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there, because somewhere it is 2 a.m, somewhere else a kettle has just begun to whistle, and somewhere in Victorian London a gentleman is putting on a hat so tall it suggests he has private architectural ambitions. The channel is also on Spotify, so if you prefer drifting off while a calm stranger explains horse manure, arsenic dye, railway manners, domestic servants, mourning jewellery, patent medicine, cold bedrooms, suspicious puddings, and why the 19th century seemed determined to make every hallway slightly too dark, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights, put on a fan if you have one, pull the blanket up, turn the pillow to the cool side, and get truly comfortable. Because tonight you are going to wake in Victorian England, where progress is everywhere, plumbing is trying its best, and the nearest doctor may still have strong feelings about bad air. What do you do when your bedroom has no bathroom, your street has too many horses, your medicine may contain a surprising amount of opium, And your relatives expect you to mourn in black long enough to develop a close personal relationship with lint. How do you enjoy a polite visit when the wrong calling card can create a tiny paper crisis? How do you take a seaside holiday when your bathing costume weighs more after touching the sea than some small pieces of furniture? How do you trust a bright green wallpaper when it looks cheerful in exactly the way dangerous things sometimes do? And most importantly, how does an age so proud of invention manage to invent so many new ways to be uncomfortable? Congratulations. It is the late 19th century. Queen Victoria is on the throne, the kettle is on, the street outside smells complicated, and someone downstairs has just rung a bell for a servant who is already doing 12 other things. You are perfectly respectable. This may be the beginning of the problem. You wake to a grey morning pressing softly against the window, the kind of morning that seems to have been steeped overnight in coal smoke, damp brick, and somebody else's chimney. The room is dim even after sunrise, because Victorian light must first negotiate with fog, soot, curtains, and the general belief that fresh air is helpful only when introduced under supervision. Somewhere below, a fire is being coaxed back to life. Somewhere outside, wheels grind over wet stones. Before you have dressed, eaten, or made any large statement about progress, the air itself has entered the room carrying a social history. This is your first ordinary strangeness of the day. In Victorian England, even the morning smells employed. You lie still for a moment and listen to the house waking around you. A coal fire does not begin its work silently. It must be poked, fed, coaxed, and judged, as if it is a small black creature with opinions about breakfast. The grate below gives a faint clatter. A servant, a mother, an older child, or whoever has inherited the morning's first unpleasant duty is already dealing with ashes from yesterday, because warmth in this century arrives after someone has scraped out the evidence of previous warmth. Coal is the engine of comfort, industry, cooking, transport, and domestic survival, which is a generous way of saying that nearly every part of daily life has agreed to make the air darker. You smell it in the curtains, you notice it on the sill. It settles into fabric, creeps into wallpaper, and gives pale laundry the faint look of having overheard bad news. In London, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, and countless other towns, the 19th century sky is not merely weather, it is a record of chimneys. Homes burn coal, factories burn coal, workshops burn coal, trains burn coal, and the city receives all this effort with the tired patience of a ceiling above too many candles. On some mornings, the fog thickens into something almost solid. Smoke joins mist, sulphur, soot, and damp to make air that can sting the eyes, catch in the throat, and turn a simple walk into a slow negotiation with visibility. People complain about it, joke about it, write about it, and then light another fire because the alternative is being cold, which is also historically inconvenient. You push back the bedclothes and feel the room's chill waiting for you like a polite creditor. Unless you are very comfortable indeed, the bedroom may not be warm when you wake. Fires cost money and labour. A household may heat the rooms where people gather, not every sleeping space. In poorer homes, many people share rooms, and the air carries bodies, damp clothes, old smoke, cooking smells, and the sour edge of too little ventilation. In better houses, thick curtains, carpets, and heavy upholstery promise comfort, but they also keep hold of dust and soot with almost sentimental loyalty. A Victorian room can look rich while quietly storing half the street in its fabric. You cross to the window and see the outside world blurred by condensation and grime. The glass is not a clear invitation to the morning. It is more of a rumour. Even the window latch feels faintly gritty under your fingers, as though the morning has arrived with paperwork and a fine black powder for emphasis. Down below, a cart passes. A horse snorts. A man calls out. A maid may be shaking a rug somewhere, bravely returning dust to its natural habitat. A chimney sweep may already be working in another street, because some corners of comfort require small boys, narrow flues, and a great deal of soot no family wants to think about over tea. The stones are wet, though it may not be raining now. Victorian streets have many ways to be damp, and few of them are cheerful. The smell rising from them is layered. Mud, coal smoke, wet wood, horse, metal, drains, bread from a baker if you are lucky, and something from an alley if you are not. This is not filth for the sake of filth. It is density. It is people living close, working hard, burning fuel, moving goods, keeping animals, boiling kettles, emptying pails, and trying to get through the day before the day leaves soot on them. Yet there is a rough coziness in the morning too. The kettle will soon sing, the fire will catch, boots may warm near the hearth if the household is kind or practical, the smell of toast may arrive and do its best to improve the reputation of the air. Victorian England often speaks of progress in grand terms, but the day begins in smaller ones. A match struck, a grate cleared, a window rubbed, a shawl pulled tight, a cough swallowed, a hand held near the fire. You are not yet walking through museums, inventions, politics, or empire. You are simply standing in a room where modern life is being made from smoke, damp, labour, and the hope that the weather will behave. Outside, the morning brightens by a shade which is generous of it. The house inhales coal, exhales routine, and asks you to begin. Even dawn, it seems, has come up through the chimney. Before tea, before toast, and before any proud thought about empire, invention, or the improving power of industry, you must deal with the chamber pot. It waits beneath the bed or behind a screen with the calm confidence of an object that knows indoor plumbing has not yet reached everyone. In a well-off house, a servant may remove it, which is convenient for you and considerably less poetic for the servant. In a poorer room, a lodging house, a crowded cottage, or a city tenement, privacy is brief, practical, and often shared with people who are also pretending not to notice. Victorian England may be building railways and town halls, but in the morning bedroom, the human body remains stubbornly unimpressed by architecture. You swing your feet to the floor and become aware of that small domestic truth waiting nearby. It is not dramatic. It is not mysterious. It is simply there, because the body has requirements and the house has not yet arranged a more elegant answer. In many homes, especially earlier in the century and in poorer districts throughout it, sanitation is a patchwork of chamber pots, privies, cesspits, shared yards, slop buckets, drains of uncertain mood, and public arrangements that depend heavily on tolerance. The flush water closet exists and becomes more common among the better off, especially as plumbing improves, sewers expand, and households modernise, but it is not evenly spread through society. A fine townhouse may contain modern conveniences, while a few streets away families share a privy with neighbours, lodgers, and possibly a rat with a confident schedule. The Victorian period does not lack invention. It lacks equal distribution, which is a less charming problem and much harder to fit in a catalogue. If you are fortunate, the chamber pot has a lid. If you are extremely fortunate, someone else removes it before the day grows warm enough for the object to express itself. In a grand house, this task belongs to servants, often young women already expected to rise early, light fires, carry water, empty ashes, fetch coal, scrub steps, answer bells, and keep their feelings in the same quiet cupboard as the boot brushes. To the family upstairs, the chamber pot may almost disappear from thought. To the servant carrying it, usually along passages and downstairs never designed for philosophical reflection, it remains a very solid part of the morning. Respectability has a habit of making necessary labour invisible, and few labours benefit from invisibility quite like this one. In a humbler home, there may be no such distance between the user and the task. You may carry the pot yourself, carefully, with the slow attention of someone transporting both bodily waste and household dignity. You may empty it into a yard privy, a drain, a cesspit, or whatever system your building possesses, if system is not too flattering a word. In crowded cities, poor sanitation can help spread disease, especially where water supplies are contaminated and waste disposal is badly managed. Cholera outbreaks earlier in the Victorian period make the danger impossible to ignore, even if the exact causes are argued over before germ theory gains wider acceptance. Reformers, engineers, doctors, local officials and residents push for better drains, cleaner water, and public health measures, sometimes with great success and sometimes with the speed of a committee trapped in mud. Meanwhile, people still wake up each day needing to empty something. That is the quiet historical point. Big reforms arrive through reports, laws, engineering works, and civic pride. Daily life continues through buckets. There is also the matter of smell. A Victorian home is not necessarily filthy in the way a modern imagination sometimes enjoys imagining. Many households are careful, hard-working, and deeply concerned with cleanliness. But even careful people must live with the tools available, Without modern bathrooms, sealed plumbing, reliable hot water, and regular waste collection, freshness requires constant labour. Windows are opened when weather, neighbourhood, and social confidence allow. Floors are scrubbed, cloths are washed, pots are rinsed. Disinfectants, perfumes, carbolic preparations, vinegar, chloride of lime, and plenty of moral advice circulate through households that would very much like the air to stop giving evidence. You may be told cleanliness is next to godliness, though cleanliness seems to be doing most of the travelling by hand. The strangeness is not that Victorians accepted disgusting conditions because they liked them. They did not. The strangeness is that so much of ordinary bodily life had to be managed through objects now politely absent from most bedrooms. Privacy was practical, not complete. Comfort was negotiated. A house might have polished mahogany, framed prints, a piano, lace curtains, and a chamber pot beneath the bed, waiting with equal claim to reality. This is the Victorian talent for contradiction. It can place refinement and inconvenience in the same room and ask everyone not to mention the arrangement too loudly. At last, the pot is dealt with, one way or another. The room is restored to morning innocence. Soon there will be tea, washing, dressing, and perhaps a conversation about national progress. The bed is straightened, the curtains are opened, and the most honest object in the room has been removed before guests can form opinions. For now, you have received the day's first lesson. Civilization is impressive, but it still begins with someone carrying something unpleasant down the stairs. You stand before the washstand, where a jug, basin, towel, soap and mirror have gathered to suggest that cleanliness is possible, provided nobody expects too much warmth. The water may be cold enough to make your soul sit upright. A full bath is not always daily, private, simple, or available, depending on your class, home, fuel, plumbing, and tolerance for inconvenience. Washing often happens in sections. Face, hands, neck, perhaps more if the room is warm and courage remains. Clean linen matters because a fresh collar can do public work that a full bath has not personally attended. You splash your face, breathe in the soap, and prepare to look respectable. The century believes deeply in cleanliness. It is still arranging the equipment. The jug is heavy when full, and water does not arrive by wishing. Someone has carried it, pumped it, drawn it, fetched it from a tap, or paid for the conditions that allow it to appear in your room as if summoned by manners. If you live in a comfortable home, perhaps hot water can be brought up or heated for a proper bath. If you live in a more modest house, you may heat water in the kitchen and transport it in cans, which turns bathing into a small logistics exercise with steam. If you live in crowded lodgings, a back room, a rural cottage, or a poor urban court, washing may depend on shared taps, public facilities, a basin on a table, and the hope that nobody else needs the space at the exact moment you are trying to preserve decency. The public baths and washhouses that appear in many towns are signs of real reform, and they matter. They give working people places to bathe and wash clothes when private facilities are poor. But using them still takes time, money, effort, and the willingness to carry your personal linen through streets full of people who may also be carrying theirs. The idea that respectable people should be clean grows stronger through the 19th century. Soap is advertised. Advice books preach regular washing. Public health reformers connect dirt, disease, overcrowding, and bad housing. Yet ideals travel faster than pipes. A magazine may tell you that cleanliness refines the spirit, while your actual water supply sits downstairs in a bucket, waiting to test the theory. You dip the cloth and begin with the face, because the face must represent the whole person in public. Hands follow, then neck, ears, perhaps arms if the air does not feel personally hostile. Victorian washing can be careful and sincere without being fully immersive. A strip wash is not laziness. It is adaptation. A bath that requires heating gallons of water, carrying them across the house, filling a tub, emptying it afterward, and preventing the whole operation from freezing into misery is not always a casual weekday event. In wealthier houses, servants may manage much of this labour, but then privacy becomes a different question. Someone fills the tub, someone empties it, someone knows roughly how much hot water your dignity required. Comfort, once again, has staff. The soap itself may be plain, scented, hard, soft, cheap, fine, harsh, or advertised with all the confidence of a product prepared to improve the empire. Pear's soap becomes famous in the Victorian period, helped by clever advertising that links cleanliness with beauty, class, morality, and progress. Other soaps promise purity, whiteness, softness, gentility, and a future in which everyone smells faintly of success. For poorer households, soap is a practical expense, used carefully. Cleanliness may be praised as a moral duty by people who do not always mention the cost of fuel, water, soap, towels, time, space, and privacy. Moral advice is often cheapest when printed. You lean closer to the mirror. It may be spotted, dim, or flattering only by accident. The face staring back is pale in the morning light, perhaps ringed by sleep, smoke, and whatever the room has been breathing overnight. You dry your skin with a towel that feels a little rough, because softness is another luxury that must be purchased, laundered, and kept from damp. Clean linen becomes essential. A fresh shirt, chemise, collar, cuffs, apron, or cap can signal bodily order even when the bath itself has been partial. In a society anxious about class and respectability, visible cleanliness carries weight. A collar can declare discipline. White cuffs can suggest good habits. An apron can hide, protect, and confess labour all at once. Laundry, therefore, becomes one of the great hidden engines of Victorian life, and it is mostly powered by women's arms. Washing clothes means soaking, boiling, rubbing, rinsing, wringing, drying, ironing, folding, and hoping soot does not undo the whole sermon. You finish at the basin and notice how quickly clean water becomes grey. This is not a failure. It is proof of contact with the century. Soot on skin, dust on cuffs, mud on hems, ink on fingers, candle grease, kitchen smoke, workshop grime, horse street, factory air, coal cellar, sick room, nursery, schoolroom, scullery, all of it has a way of joining the person. Victorian cleanliness is not a single act. It is a daily argument with surroundings. You straighten, set down the cloth and feel briefly sharper, colder, and more prepared to be judged. The mirror gives back a person who has tried. In this world, trying matters. The water in the basin, however, has seen enough of civilization for one morning. Dressing is not an action so much as a small domestic operation. Buttons must be found, laces tightened, collars fixed, stockings drawn, boots fastened, and layers arranged until the body has been made suitable for society and slightly less available for breathing. If you are a middle-class or upper-class woman, clothing may involve stays, petticoats, bustles, gloves, bonnets, shawls, and the quiet agreement that comfort should not get above itself. If you work for wages, your clothing must survive soot, rain, labour, washing, and a budget with very little imagination. Everyone is dressed for a world that reads fabric like a witness statement. Your clothes do not simply cover you, they introduce you before you have had time to prepare a defence. The first layer is not chosen for beauty so much as survival. Linen or cotton sits closest to the body, absorbing sweat, protecting the outer garments, and giving the laundry its daily purpose in life. Then come stockings, drawers, chemise, corset or stays for many women, petticoats, skirt supports depending on the decade, dress, collar, cuffs, gloves, hat, boots, and whatever extra item the weather has decided to demand. The exact arrangement changes over the long Victorian period. Early crinolines swell skirts outward. Later bustles push shape backward with a confidence that makes chairs seem personally challenged. Fashion moves, but never in the direction of simplicity for very long. If there is an easier way to stand in a doorway, society prefers not to hear about it. You pull at a fastening and immediately understand that clothing can turn the morning into teamwork. Some garments require assistance. Hooks sit where human shoulders cannot reasonably reach. Laces demand tension. Buttons are small, numerous, and placed by people who trusted patience more than anatomy. In a household with servants, a maid may help dress a mistress, brush fabric, arrange hair, fasten boots, and prepare the visible person for the day. In a household without servants, women help one another, manage alone, or adapt. Working women need clothes that allow movement, durability, and modesty, even when employers, weather, and wages show limited interest in any of the three. A servant's dress must be clean, plain, appropriate, and ready for work that will immediately threaten its cleanliness. A factory girl's shawl, apron, boots, and dress must endure machines, dust, cold mornings, and long hours. A shop assistant must look neat enough to sell respectability while being paid in a way that makes respectability expensive. Men are not free from the arrangement either. Shirts, waistcoats, trousers, frock coats, morning coats, cravats, collars, cuffs, boots, hats and gloves all carry social meaning. The top hat does not merely keep off rain, which it does with questionable humility. It announces class, occupation, aspiration, and sometimes the wearer's belief that his head requires a chimney. A working man may wear sturdy boots, corduroy, moleskin, caps, aprons, or jackets suited to labour, but even here clothing speaks. Cleanliness, repair, and fit matter. A torn sleeve may reveal poverty before a person has said a word. A polished boot can be a small act of defiance against being dismissed. Victorian England is full of eyes, and fabric gives those eyes something to do. Respectability lives in details. Gloves worn in public, hats removed at the right time, hems kept from mud, collars changed, mourning colours observed, Sunday best preserved, work clothes separated from visiting clothes, and underclothes kept private in both laundry and conversation. A woman stepping outside without a hat may seem careless or improper, depending on class and place. A man entering a drawing room in the wrong coat might not cause national collapse, but someone will store the memory carefully. Clothes organise gender too. Women's garments often value modesty, shape and display. Men's garments value sober authority, professional position, and the appearance of calm control, even when the wearer has lost his train ticket and one glove. Corsets deserve special care, because they have attracted both myth and outrage. They were common in many women's wardrobes, used to shape the body, support posture, and fit the fashion of the day. Not every corset was laced to the point of fainting, and not every woman wore one in the same way. Working women often needed mobility. Pregnant women adapted. Reform dress advocates criticised tight lacing and restrictive fashion. Doctors argued. Satirists laughed. Women made choices within real pressure. The important point is not that every Victorian woman spent the day collapsing onto sofas. The point is that clothing helped teach the body what society expected it to be. Upright, controlled, modest, distinctly feminine, decorative when possible, useful when necessary, silent about the pins. You reach for your boots, and the day becomes practical again. Streets are muddy, houses are cold. Work must be done. Visiting may happen. Someone may judge your cuff before they judge your soul, which at least gives the soul a moment to prepare. A loose thread is trimmed, a collar is pressed flat, and one stubborn button is finally persuaded to join society. Once dressed, you are not merely warmer, you are legible. Class, gender, work, money, grief, ambition, taste and habit have all taken their places on your body. You stand before the mirror, secured, buttoned, layered, and socially available. The furniture seems satisfied. Breathing as usual will have to fit around the schedule. By the time you reach breakfast, the house has already required labour from people who may not be sitting at the table. The kettle boils, toast appears, coal has been carried, grates have been cleaned, boots may be brushed, and somebody has made the room look as if all this happened naturally, like weather or mild magic. In wealthier homes, servants move through kitchens, sculleries, pantries, backstairs, nurseries and corridors with practiced invisibility. In more modest households, the family does the work itself, often with fewer tools and no one calling it charming. Tea helps, as tea so often does in British history, by giving everyone something warm to hold while the day begins making demands. Breakfast is peaceful, provided you do not ask who produced it. You sit at the table and notice how carefully mourning has been arranged. The room may smell of toast, tea, coal smoke, butter, bacon if the household can afford it, porridge if it cannot, and that faint dampness old houses keep in reserve for emotional balance. In a middle-class home, breakfast might include bread, butter, preserves, eggs, fish, ham, kidneys, sausages, or whatever suits the family's money, appetite, and faith in digestion. In a poorer household, the meal may be simpler: tea, bread, dripping, porridge, leftovers, or nothing very grand at all. Victorian eating is shaped by class as surely as clothing is. Some tables groan beneath choice, others negotiate with a loaf. If there is a servant, she has likely been awake for some time. The kitchen fire had to be lit, the range needed tending, ashes had to be cleared, water might be carried, knives and boots might be cleaned. The front step may have been scrubbed so the world outside can see that the household has standards. In large houses, the division of labour is precise. Cook, kitchen maid, scullery maid, housemaid, parlour maid, nursemaid, lady's maid, butler, footman, coachman, gardener, depending on wealth and size. In smaller middle-class homes, one maid may be expected to perform the work of several people and remain cheerful enough not to damage the family's sense of kindness. She rises early, eats separately, works long hours, and learns that invisibility is not the same as rest. Above stairs, the family may speak of domestic comfort. Below stairs, comfort is carried, polished, boiled, scrubbed, and occasionally dropped with a noise that must be regretted at once. In households without servants, the mother, daughters, older sons, relatives, or lodgers do the work themselves. This does not make the labour disappear. It simply removes the bell. A working-class woman may prepare breakfast before going out to paid work, or before taking in laundry, sewing, cleaning, caring for children, shopping, managing rent, and stretching money across the week like dough made from worry. A man may eat quickly before leaving for factory, shop, yard, dock, field office, or railway. Children may help, hinder, or do both with great commitment. The domestic army does not always wear uniforms. Sometimes it is just the family, half awake, making a day possible before anyone calls it work. Tea, meanwhile, performs its usual national service. By the Victorian period, tea is woven deeply into daily life across classes, though quality varies. For some, it is delicate, served from proper pots with cups, saucers, sugar, milk, and small rituals of hospitality. For others, it is strong, practical, sweet when sugar is available, and taken as comfort, stimulant, warmth, and small reward. It cuts through cold mornings and long afternoons. It fills pauses. It dignifies bread. It gives tired people a reason to sit for a moment, though not always a long enough moment to feel the benefit. You lift the cup and inhale steam. The tea does not solve rent, hunger, overwork, dirty streets, or social judgment. It simply makes them seem slightly less immediate, which is why it has been promoted unofficially to emotional infrastructure. Breakfast also teaches the household's hierarchy. Who is served first? Who pours? Who carves if there is carving to be done? Who eats standing? Who has already eaten in the kitchen? Who receives the best piece? Who is told to hurry? A meal can look gentle and still reveal power. The father may read a newspaper. The mother may oversee everyone's needs. Children may be corrected. Servants may enter and vanish. And the person who cooked the food may not taste it until the respectable people have finished being grateful. In poorer homes, the hierarchy may be less formal but no less real, shaped by age, wages, hunger, and who must leave first. Food is not merely food. It is money, labour, status, gender, habit, duty, and the daily hope that everyone gets enough to remain civil. You spread butter if there is butter, or something humbler if there is not. A crumb falls onto the cloth and is noticed by someone who believes table manners are the thin line between civilization and personal ruin. Outside, the street grows louder. Inside, spoons touch cups, chairs shift, and the day gathers itself. Breakfast has warmed you, steadied you, and reminded you that domestic peace is often the result of other people moving very quickly in another room. The kettle sighs. The toast is eaten. The house looks calm. An impressive number of people have already worked very hard so that nothing appears to have happened. The bell rings from somewhere above, sharp and ordinary, and someone below stairs must read it like a change in weather. In a large Victorian house, bells are not simply bells. They are messages from another world. Drawing room, dining room, bedroom, nursery, front door. Each summons has its own meaning and its own urgency, especially if the person ringing believes waiting for half a minute is the first sign of national decline. Domestic service employs huge numbers of women and girls, and also men in larger households, in work that is intimate, exhausting, skilled, and often treated as background furniture with a pulse. You hear the bell and understand that one house may contain two very different lives, joined by stairs and impatience. You may be standing in a corridor carrying a tray, a coal scuttle, a pile of linen, or simply the last few minutes in which you hope to breathe without instruction. Then the bellboard trembles. A small metal indicator moves. Somewhere upstairs, a finger has pressed a button or pulled a cord, and below stairs the household rearranges itself around that tiny act of command. The system is clever, almost elegant, in the way of an invention that solves one person's inconvenience by making it somebody else's occupation. Wires run through walls, bells sound in service areas, and the family can summon help without shouting through rooms like ordinary mortals. It is also a machine for turning every quiet moment into a possible interruption. The bell does not care whether your hands are in hot water, whether the range needs watching, whether the nursery has spilled itself onto the floor, or whether another bell has already rung with the emotional urgency of a duchess missing a glove. In a grand house, hierarchy has its own architecture. The family and guests move through front halls, drawing rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, and polished spaces meant to look calm. Servants move through back stairs, basement kitchens, pantries, sculleries, passages, and rooms that keep the comfort out of sight. The same building holds warmth and fatigue, leisure and labour, soft carpets and stone floors. You might carry hot water upward to someone who will later discuss the importance of self-discipline. You might polish silver that will reflect faces unlikely to know your surname. You might spend the day making a house seem effortless, which is one of the hardest kinds of effort. Domestic service is not only drudgery, though there is plenty of that. It requires skill, memory, timing, strength, tact, and the ability to notice what other people need before they have fully decided to need it. A good servant knows how a fire should be laid, when a room must be aired, how a table is set, how linen is stored, which visitor outranks which cousin, and what tone to use when a master asks whether anyone has seen his umbrella, as if the umbrella has entered private life on its own. The work can offer wages, lodging, food, training, and a route away from rural poverty for some young people, especially girls leaving villages where paid choices are thin. It can also mean long hours, little privacy, close supervision, homesickness, and a life lived beside another family's comfort without belonging to it. If you are a maid, you may wake before the household and sleep after it. Your day begins with fires and ends with doors. You may share a cramped room in the attic or servants' quarters. You may eat separately, follow strict rules, wear a uniform, and answer to employers who expect gratitude for conditions they would not personally endure before breakfast. There are better households and worse households, kind mistresses and harsh ones, fair wages and poor ones, places where servants stay for years and places where girls leave quickly if they can. A good place may mean security and training. A bad one may mean loneliness, scolding, hunger, and nowhere private to cry. Victorian service is not one story, but the bell captures its strange intimacy. You are inside the family's private life, yet not part of the family. You see tempers, illnesses, debts, courtships, secrets, untidy rooms, and the truth beneath the morning smile. You are trusted with the silver and suspected of breaking it. You are invisible until something goes missing, at which point you become suddenly fascinating. Above stairs, the bell may feel like convenience. Below stairs it is weather because it changes everything. A meal being plated must hurry. A maid crossing the kitchen must turn back. A footman may straighten his coat. The cook may mutter into a saucepan with admirable restraint. The household runs on this rhythm of summons and response. It is a kind of music, if music involved more stairs and fewer opportunities to sit down. You hear the bell again. This time it is the drawing room. Perhaps tea is needed. Perhaps a visitor has arrived. Perhaps someone is cold, bored, or unable to reach an object 2 feet away without disturbing the natural order of England. You place down what you are carrying, wipe your hands, and move toward the stairs. A whole civilization of comfort depends on these small, repeated interruptions. The family upstairs may call it service. You may call it Tuesday. You step outside and the street immediately begins explaining itself through hooves, wheels, shouts, splashes, carts, cabs, omnibuses, dogs, sweepers, puddles, and the unmistakable evidence that horses are the true engine of urban life. Before motor traffic takes command, horses carry food, coal, people, furniture, messages, waste, status, and an impressive quantity of inconvenience. They are essential, powerful, overworked, and responsible for a level of manure that gives city planning a personal fragrance. Crossing the street requires timing, attention, and a willingness to lift your hem or trouser cuff without asking too many questions about the liquid near the curb. The Victorian city moves quickly, but it does not move cleanly. Progress has wheels. It also has hooves. You pause at the edge of the pavement and let the morning pass in layers. A coal cart lumbers by with its load dark and dusty. A cab horse shakes its head, the harness jingling softly. A boy darts between wheels with the confidence of someone who has not yet fully considered mortality. A street seller calls out goods in a voice made rough by weather and competition. Somewhere nearby, a crossing sweeper tries to earn coins by clearing a path through the mud, dung, straw, and general street mixture that respectable shoes prefer not to meet in detail. This is not a quaint little picture from a Christmas card. It is a working transport system with smells. Horses are everywhere because they are necessary. They pull hansom cabs and four-wheelers, delivery vans and omnibuses, brewers' drays and private carriages, carts full of vegetables, milk, bricks, parcels, laundry, coal, and other things a city needs before it can pretend to be civilized. A wealthy family may keep carriage horses as part of status. A cab driver depends on his horse for income. A business depends on horses for delivery. A city depends on them for motion. And horses, in return, depend on feed, stables, shoeing, harness repairs, water, rest, and people willing to deal with the great physical honesty of large animals. The result is a whole hidden industry of grooms, ostlers, farriers, stable boys, harness makers, feed merchants, veterinary surgeons, dung collectors, sweepers, and men who know how to move through traffic without losing either goods or temper. Stable yards sit behind respectable streets. Hay and oats arrive in bulk. Harness is cleaned, hooves are checked, wheels are greased, and animals are worked hard enough that kindness is often less common than usefulness. The street is not just crowded, it is organised chaos that has learned to wake early. You hear iron rims on stone, hooves striking rhythm, drivers shouting warnings, and the occasional sharp sound of anger from a horse or human being who feels underappreciated by the timetable. If the day is dry, dust rises. If the day is wet, mud thickens and wheels carve the road into a brown argument. Skirts, boots, trouser cuffs, prams, parcels, and dignity are all at risk. Ladies may hold skirts carefully above the worst of it. Men may step with caution while pretending caution is not fear. Children learn the street's rules quickly, because the street teaches with little patience. A careless step can mean a shout, a shove, a splash, or worse, so city childhood develops sharp eyes before it develops much leisure. Animals are not decorative here. They are traffic, labour, danger, wealth, smell, and power in motion. There is also the problem no one can ignore for long. Horses produce waste constantly, and a large city with many horses becomes a city with many reminders. Manure is collected and reused, especially as fertiliser, so it is not merely rubbish. It is an agricultural resource with a dreadful reputation. This does not make it more pleasant while it waits in the road. Urine darkens paving stones. Straw from stables scatters. Flies gather in warm weather with democratic enthusiasm. The smell can mix with smoke, drains, market refuse, damp wool, hot metal and cooking food, until the street feels less like an open space and more like a complicated stew nobody ordered. Victorian reformers worry about street cleaning, paving, drainage and public health, but the ordinary citizen still has to cross from one side to the other without bringing half the roadway indoors. You look both ways. A hansom cab swings past light and quick, its driver perched high behind like a man piloting impatience. An omnibus follows more heavily, filled with passengers and pulled by horses working through the morning. A private carriage moves with polished confidence, making class difference audible in the neat rhythm of its wheels. A tradesman's cart follows, less polished and probably more useful. The road belongs to everyone and therefore to nobody's peace. Yet there is energy in it too. The city is alive because goods are arriving, people are going, doors are opening, shops are preparing, and streets are becoming the day's bloodstream. Horses make this possible. They also make it noisy, dirty, dangerous, expensive, and extremely visible. You step down at last, choose your moment, and cross with careful speed. A wheel splashes nearby. A horse snorts as if offended by your existence. You reach the opposite pavement with your boots still mostly loyal to you. The city has allowed you passage. It has not promised cleanliness. You climb into an omnibus and instantly become part of a social experiment conducted with damp wool, limited elbow room, and a strong national preference for pretending strangers do not have knees. Clerks, shoppers, nurses, apprentices, visitors, children, parcels and umbrellas sit close enough to share air, yet everyone works hard to preserve a delicate fiction of privacy. Conversation is cautious, eye contact must be rationed. Someone's basket presses into your leg with the confidence of a relative. Public transport opens the city, especially as routes expand and fares fall, but it also brings people together faster than old manners can comfortably explain. The horses pull forward, the vehicle jolts, and every passenger quietly agrees that nobody's boot is touching anybody else's boot. You find a place, if place is not too generous a word, and arrange yourself inside it. A woman with a parcel shifts an inch. A clerk folds his newspaper to the exact width of his own importance. A child stares at you, is corrected, and continues staring with greater historical purpose. The omnibus smells of wet coats, horse, leather, dust, breath, and the faint trapped warmth of people who would all prefer slightly more space but have decided to call this convenience. It is convenience, in truth, even if convenience arrives with another person's damp sleeve resting near your wrist. Earlier in the century, moving across a large city can be slow, costly, or exhausting. Walking takes time and strength. Cabs are useful but too expensive for daily use by many. The omnibus gives clerks, shoppers, servants on errands, working people, visitors and families a way to cover more ground without owning a carriage or surrendering the entire afternoon to footwear. Routes spread through London and other towns. Fares, competition, and later improvements make public transport an ordinary part of urban life. The city grows larger, and the omnibus helps people believe they can still reach pieces of it before nightfall. That is the noble view, the version that sounds excellent in a reform speech or a transport company notice. The immediate view is your knee being introduced to a stranger's umbrella handle. The seating can be cramped, especially inside. In some vehicles, passengers ride outside as well, which offers air, views, weather, and a more intimate relationship with soot. Inside, the windows may fog, the floor may be muddy. The motion may jolt your spine with the enthusiasm of a moral lesson. You hold a strap, rail, or seat edge and try to move with the vehicle rather than against it. This is not always successful. A sudden stop sends everyone into a brief, silent negotiation with gravity, dignity, and the location of their parcels. Hats wobble, parcels slide. Someone apologizes without quite accepting responsibility. The conductor squeezes through or clings outside, collecting fares, announcing stops, and developing the manner of a man who has seen every possible arrangement of human inconvenience and is no longer easily impressed. The social rules are delicate. You are in public but close enough for private smells. You may hear fragments of conversation, but listening to obviously is rude. You may sit beside a person of a different class, occupation, or neighbourhood, but everyone tries to maintain the small invisible walls that manners build when actual walls are unavailable. Gender matters too. A gentleman may offer a seat, though not always. A woman may accept with thanks, decline with dignity, or stand while privately judging the entire male sex through one pair of gloves. Respectability travels with you, even when the wheels hit a rut. You keep your voice low, you do not stare, you do not lean, you do not let your parcel behave like livestock. If you are poor, your clothing may be red. If you are better off, your discomfort may be red. The omnibus is democratic in the sense that everyone is jolted, but not equal in the sense that everyone is judged from different starting points. Outside, the city passes in pieces. Shop fronts, public houses, churches, hoardings, market stalls, brick terraces, workmen, boys with newspapers, women carrying baskets, policemen, dogs, horses, mud, gas lamps, and the sudden elegant doorway of a house whose inhabitants may prefer not to imagine the inside of an omnibus at all. Travel gives you new views of the city, but it also gives the city new access to you. You are no longer sealed inside your own street. You move through districts, observe faces, notice fashions, and learn distances by the ache in your back. For many women, public transport can mean access to shops, work, parks, relatives, and errands that would otherwise take far longer. For men, it can carry the daily journey to office or business. For young people, it expands the map. For everyone, it requires patience. Then another passenger climbs in, and the carefully balanced human arrangement must be remade. Knees shift. Skirts are gathered. The clerk's newspaper retreats. Someone's basket becomes your neighbour in a legal sense. The horses pull again, steady and tired. The omnibus rattles onward, carrying errands, ambitions, gossip, wages, sore feet, and several umbrellas with more confidence than discipline. You look out through the misted window and decide that modern transport is a marvel. It is also a room full of strangers bouncing slowly down the road together, while pretending not to breathe the same air. You arrive at a respectable house and do not simply knock like a person with ordinary needs. You present a calling card, that small rectangle of paper carrying your name, intentions, social position, and ability to cause trouble at tea. Victorian visiting rules can be delicate enough to make a teacup nervous. Cards are left, returned, ignored, folded, placed on trays, read carefully, and interpreted by people with far too much practice. For the middle and upper classes, visiting is not merely friendship. It is reputation management with biscuits nearby. You hand over the card and wait while your identity travels indoors ahead of you. This is efficient, if one believes paper should be allowed to have a social life. The front door is opened by a servant, or by someone performing the role of respectability as best the household can manage, which is often more difficult than the manuals suggest. You give your name, or more properly, your card gives it for you. The card may be placed on a tray and carried away like a tiny ambassador with no legs and enormous confidence. You stand in the hall or wait near the threshold, aware of polished wood, umbrella stands, dark coats, faint perfume, dust, and the solemn silence that respectable houses keep for visitors they have not yet decided to welcome. Whether the lady of the house is at home may not mean what a plain mind imagines. At home can mean willing to receive callers. Not at home can mean genuinely absent, socially unavailable, tired, occupied, displeased, or simply unwilling to open the drawing room to your particular weather system. Everyone understands this and pretends the phrase has only one meaning, because polite life often depends on treating useful fictions as furniture. Calling is especially important for women of certain classes, whose social worlds are built through visits, introductions, invitations, returns of calls, and the careful maintenance of acquaintance. A formal call may be brief, perhaps lasting only a short while, because staying too long can be as awkward as not coming at all. You may ask after health, admire a child from a safe distance, comment on the weather, exchange news, and avoid every subject that might cause the room to develop edges. The visit is not deep friendship, at least not necessarily. It is a signal that the relationship is alive, the connection acknowledged, the proper forms observed. A household that receives calls receives proof that it exists socially. A person whose calls are ignored may feel the door of society closing with very quiet hinges. The calling card helps manage this world. It prevents confusion, records presence, and lets people perform connection without always enduring conversation. Cards can be left when someone is absent. They can be returned, delayed, or neglected. They may signal congratulations, condolences, introductions, departures, arrivals, or obligations. Etiquette manuals offer guidance on who may call first, when calls should be returned, how long to remain, and what behaviour might suggest either breeding or catastrophe. The rules shift over time and vary by class, city, region, and household, but the general principle remains clear. Sociability requires paperwork. You may think this fussy. The Victorians might reply that society without rules is simply a room where everyone sits wherever they like, and from there civilization falls quickly into chaos, possibly beginning with the piano stool. Inside the drawing room, if you are admitted, everything becomes careful. Chairs are chosen, gloves may remain, tea may appear. The hostess must be gracious without seeming eager. The caller must be pleasant without becoming a project. The conversation moves lightly. Illness can be mentioned, but not with too many details. Money is avoided unless disguised as concern. Servants are present and absent at once. Daughters may be observed, sons may be praised. A new engagement, a bereavement, a move, a scandal, a school, a curate, a dress, a sermon, or someone's alarming new wallpaper may all be handled with soft voices and sharp attention. You learn that politeness is not the opposite of scrutiny. It is scrutiny wearing a better hat. Calling also protects boundaries. In a world where homes are private, class matters and women's reputations can be easily damaged, formal visiting gives structure to contact. It tells people when they may enter, how long they may remain, and what sort of intimacy is allowed. This can feel restrictive, and it is. It can also offer women ways to build networks, exchange information, arrange charity work, manage family alliances, support one another, and quietly govern whole neighbourhoods from rooms full of chairs. A tray of calling cards may look harmless. It may also be a local map of obligation, affection, rivalry, memory, and mild revenge. You finish your call, if call there is, and rise before comfort becomes a mistake. Farewells are exchanged. A servant appears. The front door opens, and the outdoor air returns with less upholstery and fewer opinions about your gloves. Perhaps the visit went well. Perhaps your card will be returned. Perhaps it will sit unanswered in a tray with the chilly dignity of a rejected suitor. You step back into the street knowing that you have done something both small and oddly important. In Victorian society, even friendship sometimes waits to see if it has been properly engraved. The shop window glows with ribbons, gloves, boots, brushes, tins, fabrics, sweets and objects, promising a more orderly version of your life, if only your purse would cooperate. Victorian shopping is changing quickly, especially in towns and cities where arcades, department stores, fixed prices, advertisements, and plate glass windows make buying feel like an outing rather than a private negotiation in a dim room. But every purchase still carries judgment. Are you thrifty, wasteful, fashionable, vulgar, careful, ambitious, respectable, or visibly trying too hard? The assistant watches. Other customers notice. Your household budget clears its throat. You examine a pair of gloves as if the future of your dignity rests upon kid leather. In a small way, it does. You stand before the glass and let the display do its work. The window is not merely showing goods, it is arranging desire into tidy piles. A bonnet promises better posture. A length of fabric suggests a calmer household, as if silk has ever personally paid rent. A row of tins implies that modern life can be improved by labels, shine, and the confidence of factory packaging. Sweets glow in colours that may be harmless, or may be taking a more adventurous view of chemistry. Brushes, combs, collars, ribbons, buttons, gloves, umbrellas, lamps, soaps, powders and patent gadgets sit beneath lettering designed to make need and want look like cousins. Victorian advertising grows bolder through the century. Newspapers, posters, handbills, trade cards, painted signs and shop windows all begin speaking at once, each insisting that your life contains a gap shaped exactly like this product. The gap may not have existed yesterday. This is progress. In older shopping habits, buying can involve bargaining, credit, personal relationships with tradesmen, and careful trust. You know the butcher, the grocer, the draper, the baker, or at least know whether they have a reputation for honesty. As towns grow and retail changes, shopping becomes brighter, larger, and more theatrical. Department stores and big drapers offer many goods under one roof. Fixed prices make buying feel more modern and less like a duel conducted over fabric. Plate glass windows turn streets into galleries of temptation. Women, especially middle-class women, can enter shops and move through public space with a new kind of purpose. Shopping becomes respectable leisure, domestic duty, social display, and private pleasure all at once, which is a heavy burden for a ribbon. Inside the shop, the air may smell of cloth, polish, paper, perfume, dust, leather, candle wax, and the faint anxiety of people comparing prices. Assistants stand ready, often trained to be attentive without seeming pushy, unless pushiness is exactly what the owner has requested in a more elegant vocabulary. A good assistant must read customers quickly. Who has money, who is pretending, who needs encouragement, who must be handled gently, who is likely to return, and who is simply sheltering from rain under the moral cover of examining handkerchiefs. If you are the customer, you must also perform. You cannot appear too eager, too mean, too uncertain, or too impressed by the very object you have come to inspect. You ask the price with calm interest, as if your household accounts are not currently sitting upright in alarm. For working-class shoppers, the stakes may be sharper. A few coins must cover food, fuel, rent, clothing, and small emergencies. Second-hand shops, markets, street sellers, pawnbrokers, and credit arrangements become part of survival. A shawl may be bought used, a pair of boots repaired again, a Sunday garment preserved with care, a household item purchased only after weeks of calculation. Pawning can be ordinary, especially in hard times, with goods taken in on Monday and redeemed when wages arrive. Respectability is expensive, but poverty is also expensive in small, repeated humiliations. The shop window may glitter for everyone, but it does not welcome every purse in the same tone. There is moral pressure in shopping too. Victorian culture often praises thrift, especially for women managing households, yet it also expects them to keep families neat, rooms decent, children clothed, tables presentable, and appearances respectable. Spend too little and you may look shabby. Spend too much and you may be frivolous. Buy fashionable goods and you may be vain. Ignore fashion and you may be careless. The ideal shopper somehow purchases wisely, saves money, supports the household, maintains status, resists temptation, notices quality, and returns home with exactly what was needed, plus nothing that might suggest weakness near ribbons. It is a demanding job for someone who only came in for thread. You choose the gloves, or do not. Perhaps you ask for a cheaper pair. Perhaps you decide the old pair can last another month if no one looks closely at the thumb. Perhaps you buy tea, soap, pins, buttons, boot polish, a paper of sweets for a child, or a small luxury that feels slightly reckless and deeply human. The parcel is wrapped in paper and string and handed over with ceremony enough to make the purchase feel approved. Outside, the street continues with hooves and shouts. You tuck the package under your arm and step back into the day, a little poorer and perhaps a little improved. The window behind you glows on, already explaining to the next passerby that happiness may be available in the correct size. You enter a public park where gravel paths, iron railings, flower beds, benches, prams, nurses, clerks, courting couples, and retired gentlemen have gathered to prove that fresh air can be improved by rules. Victorian parks are not simply green spaces. They are civic promises, health projects, social stages, and carefully planted reminders that even leisure benefits from supervision. You may stroll, observe, be observed, rest your lungs, greet acquaintances, and demonstrate that you know how to behave outdoors without alarming the shrubbery. Children run ahead, restrained by clothing, manners, and the possibility of mud. The park offers relief from smoke and crowding, and that relief is real. It also turns relaxation into a public performance. Even the trees seem well brought up. You pass through the gate and feel the city loosen slightly around you. Behind you are streets full of hooves, soot, shop windows, workrooms, drains, and voices. Ahead are lawns clipped into obedience, beds of flowers arranged with civic pride, and paths designed to let people walk without immediately becoming intimate with mud. For a town or city crowded by factories, terraces, workshops, and narrow courts, a public park can feel almost miraculous. It gives space. It gives air. It gives working people a place to walk on a Sunday, children somewhere to run, nurses somewhere to push prams, clerks somewhere to display the careful polish of their boots, and families somewhere to feel that the city has not entirely forgotten lungs. Victorian reformers, philanthropists, officials, and local campaigners often support parks because they believe green space can improve health, manners, public order, and the general moral condition of people who have spent too long near drains. This is a very Victorian combination. The flower bed is pretty, but it is also quietly expected to reform your character. You follow the gravel path and notice how thoroughly nature has been organised. Iron railings keep boundaries clear. Signs may tell you what not to do. Keep off the grass. Do not pick flowers. Do not damage shrubs. Do not behave as if the park is a field that has wandered into town without supervision. Park keepers watch. Benches are placed with intention. Paths curve gently, encouraging movement without allowing too much wildness. Even the ducks, if there are ducks, seem to have entered into a municipal understanding. Yet the rules have a purpose. Public spaces bring different classes into the same landscape, and Victorian society enjoys togetherness most when it has been given instructions. A gentleman may stroll. A servant on an afternoon out may stroll. Children may run, though not too freely. Courting couples may sit where they can be seen, which is considered safer than sitting where they cannot. A poor family may enjoy fresh air, though clothing still tells stories no one has politely requested. The park promises common pleasure, but it does not erase class. It simply gives class somewhere leafy to stand. You see a nursemaid managing a child dressed in white with no regard for puddles. You see older men resting, possibly discussing politics, weather, or the alarming decline of something that was also declining when they were young. You see women walking in pairs, skirts brushing the path, hats steady, gloves correct, faces composed in the mild expression required when one wishes to enjoy oneself without appearing loose. You see young men trying to look casual while failing with effort. The park is healthful, but it is also a theatre. People come here to breathe, and also to be seen breathing properly. Public parks grow partly from real anxiety about city life. Industrial towns can be dark, crowded, smoky, and hard on the body. Overcrowded housing, poor sanitation, long work hours, and little open space make fresh air more than a luxury. A park can offer relief from streets where children play beside traffic and drains. It can host bandstands, boating lakes, cricket grounds, statues, fountains, and public events. It can give the city a place to gather without charging admission, which matters deeply to people whose pockets cannot negotiate with private gardens. For many working families, a park may be one of the few places where leisure does not require buying very much, though snacks, fares, Sunday clothes, and time itself can still cost more than speeches admit. You sit for a moment and feel the bench beneath you, hard but democratic. The air smells of damp grass, turned soil, flowers, wool, horse traffic beyond the gates, and perhaps a paper bag of something sweet held by a child nearby. The city is still present. It has not vanished. Smoke drifts, church bells may sound. Factory chimneys remain on the skyline like stern reminders that Monday is not a rumour. But here, for a while, the body can slow down. The eyes can rest on green rather than brick. The lungs can attempt optimism. The mind can pretend that gravel paths and geraniums have solved the century. They have not, of course. A park cannot end poverty, shorten the factory day, clean every court, or make cramped rooms wider. But it can offer an hour of ordinary mercy. That matters. You stand and continue along the path as a child is warned away from the flower bed with the tone normally reserved for treason. The park remains calm, planted, useful, watched, and faintly proud of itself. Even rest, in Victorian England, has put on gloves. You pass a child carrying goods, sweeping a crossing, minding smaller children, helping in a shop, or hurrying toward work with a face too serious for the hour. Victorian England speaks warmly about childhood, family feeling, moral improvement, and innocent little faces in picture books, yet millions of children still labour in factories, mines, streets, farms, workshops, homes, and domestic service. Reform comes slowly, unevenly, and often after adults have produced excellent reasons why the economy cannot possibly continue without small hands doing large work. Childhood is being cherished in nurseries and stories at the same time many real children are earning wages. The contradiction is not hidden. It is simply walking beside you in boots that do not fit. You watch the child move through the morning with a quickness that belongs less to play than to necessity. A basket hangs from one arm. A bundle is tucked close. A smaller child trails behind, half cared for and half dragged through the day by family duty. In richer homes, childhood is becoming sentimental, almost sacred. Nurseries fill with toys, picture books, rocking horses, moral tales, alphabet cards, dolls, toy soldiers, and the idea that children should be protected, trained, softened, guided, and photographed before they grow inconveniently adult. Christmas stories, children's magazines, school prizes, and family portraits help create a glowing image of innocence. Yet, in many poorer households, a child's body is also an economic fact. Small hands can earn. Small feet can run errands. Small backs can carry. Small fingers can sort, pick, clean, mend, sweep, thread, match, fold, crawl, and reach into places where adult bodies cannot go without argument. This does not mean parents do not love their children. It often means love is living inside a budget that has already made threats. A few extra coins can matter. Rent must be paid. Bread must be bought. Coal must be found. If the father is ill, dead, absent, badly paid, or out of work, the child's earnings may stand between the family and hunger. If the mother takes in laundry, sewing, cleaning, or paid work, older children may mind younger ones before anyone uses the phrase childcare, as if it were a service rather than a sibling with tired eyes. You pass a crossing sweeper and understand the street has its own little economy. A child clears mud, dung, and refuse from a crossing, hoping pedestrians will pay for the privilege of keeping their shoes from joining the road. Others sell matches, flowers, newspapers, watercress, ribbons, or whatever can be carried and cried aloud. Some work as errand boys, apprentices, chimney sweeps, factory hands, agricultural labourers, domestic servants, or helpers in family businesses. Some forms of work are seasonal. Some are dangerous. Some are merely exhausting in the patient way daily poverty can be exhausting. Reform Acts gradually limit child labour in factories, mines, and other trades, and schooling laws later make education more expected and more enforceable. These changes matter. They save bodies and open futures, but laws do not reach every corner at once. Employers evade rules. Families need money. Inspectors cannot stand in every workshop, kitchen, field, or back room. Childhood improves unevenly, which is a polite phrase for the fact that some children are protected while others continue to carry parcels through rain. You notice the child's clothes. The hem is short. The boots are worn. The face may be sharp with hunger or simply weather. Children in poor neighbourhoods often grow up publicly, watched by streets rather than nurseries. They learn prices, routes, tempers, hazards, and which adult will cheat them before they have fully learned spelling. They may be clever, funny, tough, affectionate, frightened, loyal, and deeply offended by a bad piece of bread. Even working children play when play can slip in. They turn scraps into toys, alleys into kingdoms, errands into races, and scraps of time into childhood by force of imagination. That is important. They are not little symbols moving through a reform pamphlet. They are children, which means they may be tired, hungry, proud, bored, mischievous, and full of private jokes adults never hear. Victorian adults argue about them constantly. Reformers describe suffering, employers speak of necessity, moralists worry about street children becoming criminals. Philanthropists open ragged schools and charities. Newspapers publish terrible stories. Families make decisions under pressure. The child's labour becomes a place where the whole century's contradictions gather: industry and innocence, profit and pity, family love and economic need, reform and delay. You continue walking, and a child runs past with a message, dodging wheels with skill no child should have needed to learn. Nearby, another stares into a shop window at toys meant for someone else's nursery. The display glows warmly. The child does not linger long. There is work to do, and the day is not sentimental enough to wait. Perhaps, if luck holds, the child will later sit in a schoolroom, learn letters, join a better trade, or find a place where wages come without the street taking its share first. Perhaps not. Victorian hope often arrives in patches, sewn onto old cloth and expected to look new. Victorian England is slowly inventing the protected childhood it likes to praise, but the invention has not yet been delivered to every address. You sit in a schoolroom smelling of chalk, ink, damp wool, wood polish, and children trying not to move in ways nature clearly intended. Desks line the room. Slates wait to be scratched. A teacher stands ready with lessons, discipline, and the weary knowledge that 30 restless pupils cannot all be guided gently at once. Through the Victorian period, education expands, especially as reforms make schooling more available and later compulsory for many children. But the classroom is not yet a paradise of soft voices and personal discovery. It is order, repetition, recitation, sums, copying, posture, and the hope that literacy will improve both the child and the nation. You dip the pen carefully. The blot is already considering its entrance. The room is cold in the corners and warm where too many bodies sit close together. Boots scrape beneath benches. A slate pencil squeaks with a sound designed to test both nerve and faith. Someone coughs. Someone whispers. Someone has brought in the smell of wet street, because children are very efficient at collecting weather. At the front, the teacher may be trained, dedicated, severe, exhausted, underpaid, or all of these before noon. Teaching a crowded Victorian classroom requires patience, a strong voice, and the ability to detect mischief by changes in air pressure. The lessons are practical and moral at once. Reading, writing, arithmetic, scripture, spelling, copywork, and recitation are meant to form useful workers, obedient citizens, respectable adults, and people less likely to be defeated by a notice on a wall. This is a great deal to ask of a slate. It is also a great deal to ask of a child who has eaten little, slept badly, walked far, or left younger brothers and sisters at home with a neighbour who has already done enough favours for 1 week. Education in Victorian England changes enormously over the century. Early on, schooling is uneven, provided through church schools, charity schools, dames schools, private schools, factory schools, ragged schools, and whatever a local community can manage. Many poor children attend irregularly because work, family need, illness, distance, fees and clothing all interfere. Later reforms make elementary education more widely available, and attendance becomes compulsory for many children. These laws do not make every classroom comfortable, but they do mark a major shift. The state begins to treat schooling as a public duty rather than a private accident. For families, this can bring hope and difficulty in equal measure. A child who learns to read may have better chances. A child who must attend school may also lose wages the household relied upon. Progress arrives carrying a book in one hand and a household budget in the other, which is very Victorian of it. You look down at your slate. Slate is useful because it can be wiped clean, which is economical and slightly cruel if you have just produced your finest letter B. Paper costs money. Ink misbehaves. Pens scratch, splutter, and invite disaster. The copybook teaches more than handwriting. It teaches control. Lines must be neat, bodies must be still, voices must rise together when called. The class may chant tables or repeat lessons in a rhythm that fills the room like machinery, only smaller and with more noses. Discipline can be strict. Punishments vary by school and teacher, but fear often sits close to instruction. A cane, a ruler, a dunce's cap, detention, public shame, or a sharp word may be part of the day. Not every teacher is cruel, and many care deeply about their pupils, but the system often believes children are improved by firmness, repetition, and sitting upright until the spine understands citizenship. Boys and girls may learn different expectations. Girls are often guided toward domestic skills, needlework, obedience, modesty, and usefulness within the home or service, though many also learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. Boys may be prepared for trades, offices, apprenticeships, or further study if class and money allow. Middle-class children may receive different schooling from working-class children, and elite boys may enter public schools where Latin, games, hierarchy, cold baths, and character are mixed in proportions later remembered with suspicious fondness. Poorer children may enter schools where the goal is literacy, discipline, religion, and enough arithmetic to prevent disaster at a shop counter. You hear the teacher call a question. A child answers correctly and glows for half a second before dignity returns. Another child has lost the thread entirely and is staring at a fly with the concentration of a natural philosopher. The classroom can be hard, but it can also be a doorway. To read is to enter newspapers, signs, letters, contracts, stories, advertisements, instructions, and private thought. To write is to leave a mark that is yours. For a child whose parents could not read, this is no small thing. Education can carry pride across generations, even when the bench is hard and the ink stains your fingers. The schoolroom is full of noise, rules, hope, boredom, fear, ambition, chalk dust, and the faint smell of wet socks. A lesson may be dull, but it may also be the first plank in a bridge out of work that has no mercy for small bones. You form another letter. The pen hesitates. The blot appears, dark and triumphant, exactly where it should not. Civilization pauses to inspect it. You have learned something already. Knowledge is precious, but ink has its own opinions. The bowl before you is plain, the bench is hard, and the room has been designed by people deeply suspicious of comfort. The workhouse is meant to offer relief to the poor, but after the new poor law, that relief is often made harsh enough to discourage anyone from seeking it, unless desperation has removed other choices. Families may be separated, food is basic, rules are everywhere. Work may be dull, punishing, or simply designed to remind you that needing help is not meant to feel pleasant. The institution claims to separate the deserving from the idle, as if hunger has arrived carrying paperwork. You lift the spoon and understand that charity has been made to wear a frown. The dining hall is not built for lingering. The walls are plain. The air carries the smell of boiled food, damp cloth, soap, bodies, and old stone. Around you sit men, women, children, and the elderly, though not necessarily together. One of the cruelties of the workhouse is separation. Husbands may be divided from wives. Parents may be divided from children. Boys may be sent one way, girls another, the old another, the sick another still. The system is arranged to provide relief, while making relief feel like a warning. It is not designed to be home. It is designed to be the place you enter when every other door has closed and society wants to be sure you noticed. The Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834 reshapes relief in England and Wales with the principle that conditions inside the workhouse should be less desirable than life outside for the poorest independent labourer. This idea is meant to reduce costs, discourage dependency, and separate those considered truly needy from those considered idle. It sounds tidy in policy language, as many harsh things do when placed in a report and given a clean margin. In practice, poverty is treated not only as misfortune, but as something requiring discipline. If you need help, the help may come with a uniform, a timetable, a loss of freedom, and the quiet message that survival should not become too comfortable. Not every workhouse is the same. Conditions vary by place, period, staff, local guardians, money, overcrowding, and reform. Some are worse than others. Some provide shelter, food, medical care, schooling, and protection from starvation or the street. For elderly people with nowhere else to go, for orphaned children, for the sick, disabled, or abandoned, the workhouse can be grim but life-saving. Yet even when it saves, it often humiliates. That is the difficult truth. A roof can be both shelter and stigma. A meal can keep you alive while reminding you that respectability has stepped back from your chair. You look down at the food. Gruel is the famous workhouse image, though diets vary and may include bread, potatoes, meat on certain days, soup, cheese, or other plain fare depending on institution and period. Still, the food is meant to be simple, regulated, and uninspiring. Pleasure is not the point. The point is maintenance. A body is to be kept working, not delighted. Meals are eaten under rules. Talking may be limited. Portions may be weighed, recorded, and defended with the seriousness of a government guarding national treasure, only the treasure is a ladle of thin soup. The work itself may include picking oakum, breaking stones, grinding corn, scrubbing, laundry, sewing, cleaning, or other tasks assigned by sex, age, strength, and local practice. Some work is useful, some feels deliberately dreary. Oakum picking, often associated with workhouses and prisons, means unpicking old rope fibres, a task that leaves fingers sore and time slow. It is hard to romanticize an institution whose moral philosophy can be summarized by rope fragments. Children in workhouses may receive schooling and training, which can offer some future possibility. They may also endure separation, discipline, stigma, and the ache of institutional life. Women may enter after widowhood, desertion, illness, pregnancy, outside marriage, unemployment, or simple lack of money. Men may enter when wages fail, health breaks, or age makes work impossible. The public often fears the workhouse. To be sent there can feel like falling through the floor of ordinary life. People avoid it if they can, relying on family, neighbours, pawning, charity, odd jobs, credit, or going hungry before accepting indoor relief. This fear is part of the design, which is perhaps the saddest efficiency in the whole arrangement. You raise the spoon again. The bowl is warm, at least. Warmth matters when life has become thin. Around you, others eat quietly, each carrying a private story the institution has turned into a category. Pauper, inmate, able-bodied, aged, sick, child. Words that make administration easier and people smaller. Outside, Victorian England is busy praising thrift, work, family, improvement, and public duty. Inside, the bench remains hard. The room does not ask what happened before you arrived. It does not pause over the lost job, the dead husband, the sick child, the broken tools, the bad harvest, the rent due, or the body that simply cannot keep earning. It only asks whether you will obey now. The meal ends, chairs scrape softly, bowls are collected, the day's rules continue. Relief has been given and made absolutely certain no one will enjoy the receipt. In the chemist's window, bottles gleam with labels promising relief from coughs, nerves, indigestion, sleeplessness, low spirits, weak appetite, female complaints, male weakness, and the general burden of existing on a wet Tuesday. Victorian patent medicines are everywhere, advertised with confidence, testimonials, and a generous freedom from regulation. Some contain ingredients that may help. Others contain alcohol, opium, morphine, chloroform, or mixtures that would make a modern pharmacist sit down quietly. Doctors can be expensive, suffering is common, and a bottle that promises comfort can be hard to resist. You read the label and feel reassured. This is exactly what the label was hired to do. The small shop already smells of glass, paper, herbs, soap, camphor, carbolic, damp coats, and the sharp medicinal scent of things that hope to be trusted. Behind the counter stand jars, drawers, scales, powders, lozenges, tonics, ointments, tinctures, syrups, and bottles, arranged with the calm authority of a small chemical parliament. The chemist knows his shelves, or appears to, which is often enough to quiet a worried customer. You may have come in with a cough, a headache, stomach trouble, sleeplessness, toothache, anxiety, exhaustion, menstrual pain, a child who will not settle, or a general feeling that the human body has been badly managed by its original designer. A doctor costs money. A hospital may mean delay, fear, or charity. A neighbour has advice. An advertisement has stronger advice. The bottle in the window has the strongest advice of all, because it uses large lettering. Patent medicine is not always patented in the strict sense. The name often covers proprietary remedies sold directly to the public, wrapped in branding, secrecy, and claims broad enough to shade a family picnic. Newspapers carry advertisements filled with dramatic cures, grateful letters, before and after stories, and phrases that suggest science has finally taken pity on your liver. A tonic may promise to build blood, calm nerves, restore vigour, clear the complexion, strengthen children, soothe infants, cure coughs, revive appetite, steady digestion, and improve the entire household before Sunday. The range is impressive. One begins to suspect the bottle is either miraculous or very ambitious. Some remedies do contain useful substances. Some are harmless enough apart from the cost and the disappointment. Others are risky. Opiates are used in preparations for pain, coughs, diarrhea, sleeplessness, and children's soothing mixtures. Laudanum, a tincture of opium in alcohol, is widely known. Soothing syrups may quiet babies in ways that are dangerous, especially when dosing is careless or desperate. Alcohol appears in many tonics. Other stimulating or sedating ingredients circulate in the broader 19th century medical marketplace, depending on product and period. Regulation grows over time, and the sale of poisons and dangerous drugs becomes more controlled, but the consumer world remains full of promises that move faster than caution. You turn a bottle in your hand and read words chosen to make uncertainty feel rude. The label does not say, "This may or may not help," and please consider dose, age, cause, and your general medical condition, which would be honest but poor salesmanship. It says relief. It says cure. It says celebrated. It says recommended. It may include a royal-sounding name, a doctor who may exist, or a testimonial from someone in a town far enough away to be difficult to question before tea. The appeal is easy to understand. Victorian life contains many aches. Work is long. Food can be poor. Housing can be damp. Childbirth is dangerous. Infectious disease is common. Dental pain is very real and not yet softened by modern dentistry. Anxiety has many causes and fewer gentle names. If a bottle promises sleep, strength, calm, or relief, it is not only selling medicine, it is selling a pause. People buy hope in liquid form, and sometimes hope is the only thing on the shelf that seems within reach. Respectable discomfort also needs respectable language. Women's complaints, nerves, weakness, hysteria, biliousness, liver trouble, impurity of blood, and general debility can cover a vast territory of pain, stress, overwork, depression, poor diet, pregnancy, grief, exhaustion, and illnesses not yet understood. A vague diagnosis is useful to a vague remedy. The bottle can promise to treat everything because everything has been described as a state of imbalance, weakness, or decline. You may not know what is wrong. The advertisement does not mind. It has met uncertainty before and considers it a business opportunity. The chemist wraps the purchase, perhaps after offering instructions, perhaps after trusting the label to continue its performance at home. You leave with the bottle tucked safely away, comforted by its weight and the shine of its glass. Will it help? Perhaps. Will it taste dreadful? Very likely. Will it contain something stronger than the cheerful label suggests? Quite possibly. The Victorian medicine cabinet is not empty of sense, and plenty of people learn practical remedies through hard experience. But it is crowded with confidence, some of it bottled, corked, and priced attractively. The glass performs confidence very well. You carry the remedy into the street, where the air smells of horses and coal smoke, and decide that a spoonful before bed may improve matters. At the very least, it will give your symptoms something official to argue with, which is more than they had this morning. The doctor arrives with a bag, a serious expression, and the authority of a man practicing medicine during a century that is improving, but not all at once. Germ theory gains ground during the Victorian period, especially later on, yet older ideas about bad air, damp rooms, drains, nerves, constitution, climate, diet, and habits still linger in homes, hospitals, and public debate. Illness may be blamed on smells, weakness, overwork, idleness, grief, poor ventilation, bad water, or some private failure of the sufferer. Treatments range from sensible to alarming. Progress is real, but it does not arrive evenly at every bedside. You describe your symptoms while the room smells of coal, smoke, soap, and worry. The doctor listens carefully. The air remains under suspicion. He begins by looking not only at you, but at the room around you. Is the window open? Is the drain near the house? Is there damp in the wall? Has the bed been aired? What do you eat? How long have you been tired? Have you been working too hard? Grieving too deeply? Sitting too long, eating too little, or allowing your nerves to take liberties? Victorian medicine is not foolish, though it can certainly be confident in the wrong direction. It is a field in motion. Surgeons improve their methods. Anesthesia changes operations. Antiseptic practice spreads after the work of Joseph Lister, though not instantly and not without argument. Public health reformers push cleaner water, better drains, and improved housing. Doctors begin to understand infection more clearly as germ theory gains authority through the work of scientists such as Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch. Yet beside this progress sit older habits of thought, and those habits are comfortable in the chair. Bad smells have long been treated as dangerous in themselves. This is not entirely absurd, because foul smells often do accompany filth, contaminated water, poor drainage, and overcrowding. The mistake is believing the smell is the direct cause rather than a warning sign. A drain that stinks may indeed be part of a dangerous environment, even if the true culprit is not the smell waving its handkerchief in the hallway. You cough, and the doctor considers your chest, your pulse, your tongue, your complexion, your bowels, your sleep, your appetite, your household, your work, and your general constitution, that useful word which can contain almost anything without asking permission. If you are poor, medical care may be delayed because money is short, doctors cost fees, charity hospitals can be intimidating, and missing work may itself be dangerous. If you are comfortable, you may receive a house call, careful advice, and perhaps medicine in a bottle with instructions written in a hand that has chosen privacy over legibility. Women's symptoms may be filtered through assumptions about nerves, delicacy, menstruation, marriage, childbirth, hysteria, or the troublesome habit of having opinions while female. Men's illness may be judged through work, discipline, drink, strain, and strength. Children, as usual, are expected to be both fragile and inconveniently durable. Treatments vary. You may be told to rest, ventilate the room, improve diet, take a tonic, move to the seaside, avoid excitement, bathe, use a poultice, swallow a draught, inhale steam, or endure remedies that suggest the illness has offended the doctor personally. Some advice is sensible. Fresh air, cleaner water, better food, rest, isolation during contagious disease, and basic cleanliness can help. Some remedies are useless. Some are dangerous. Medicine in this century is not a straight road from ignorance to wisdom. It is more like a crowded street where science, tradition, commerce, class, fear, and genuine care are all trying to pass at once. The sick room itself has rituals. curtains may be adjusted, fires tended, sheets changed, visitors controlled, smells masked, broths prepared, temperature judged by hand and expression. Nursing becomes more professional and respected, especially through the influence of Florence Nightingale and others who press for cleanliness, training, ventilation, and careful observation. But much care still happens at home, mainly through women's labour. A mother, wife, daughter, servant, sister, or neighbour may watch through the night, count spoonfuls, wash linen, empty basins, soothe children, and quietly become the household's unofficial medical system. The patient lies still, but the room is busy. Illness creates its own traffic of cups, cloths, whispers, footsteps, folded towels, and people asking whether you feel better in a tone that hopes to persuade the answer. The doctor may visit and advise. The daily work of illness remains beside the bed. You listen as he recommends fresh air, though the street outside is carrying coal smoke, horse traffic, and a smell from the drain that seems already involved in local politics. He suggests nourishment, but appetite has resigned. He may prescribe a mixture, because a mixture gives everyone something to do and gives the illness the impression that organised forces have arrived. You nod, grateful and uncertain. The doctor closes his bag, the room settles. Progress has entered wearing boots, carrying instruments, quoting newer ideas, and still glancing suspiciously at the wallpaper. As he leaves, you open the window a little. The outside air comes in, cold and smoky, clearly pleased to be consulted. The suite in the shop looks beautifully coloured, which is comforting until you remember that Victorian food sometimes becomes more decorative than trustworthy. Bread, milk, tea, coffee, beer, sweets, spices, and other staples may be diluted, dyed, stretched, disguised, recycled, or improved in ways that benefit the cellar more than the stomach. Regulation grows through the century, but not quickly enough to keep every dishonest hand out of the pantry. Chalk in flour, water in milk, questionable colourings in sweets, and tired tea leaves returning for a second career, all belong to a world where appetite must sometimes trust a stranger with a scoop. You look again at the bright sweet and wonder whether cheerfulness is a flavour or a warning. The shopkeeper smiles as if colour itself proves innocence. On the counter are jars of boiled sweets, lozenges, sugar plums, comfits, peppermints, and small shining promises meant to turn a child's eyes round with longing. Nearby are tea, cocoa, coffee, spices, flour, butter, cheese, pickles, sauces, and other foods whose appearance may depend partly on nature and partly on human creativity with poor moral supervision. Food adulteration is not new in the Victorian period, but the growing city, long supply chains, mass retail, and crowded markets make trust more complicated. You do not always know who made the bread, watered the milk, coloured the sweet, stretched the mustard, mixed the coffee, or swept the floor near the sugar. This gives commerce plenty of room to develop personality. Some adulteration is simple cheating. Water is added to milk or beer. Cheaper leaves are mixed into tea. Chicory, roasted grains, or other fillers may appear in coffee. Flour may be bulked or whitened. Butter may not be as loyal to the cow as the customer hopes. Other changes are meant to make food look fresher, brighter, stronger, or more expensive than it is. Colour becomes persuasion. A vivid green pickle, a bright sweet, a rich yellow powder, or a cheerful sauce can suggest quality, even if the method of cheerfulness would prefer not to meet a chemist in daylight. Some substances are merely dishonest, others can harm. Earlier in the century, toxic colourings and additives are a real concern, and shocking cases help drive public alarm. Arsenic compounds, copper salts, lead chromate, and other dangerous substances are associated with certain pigments, sweets, wallpapers, fabrics, and household goods, depending on product and use. This does not mean every sweet is a little disaster in a paper twist. It means the marketplace has enough risk to make suspicion reasonable. A child choosing by colour is not equipped to audit the supply chain, which is unfair because children are famously confident auditors of pudding. Reformers, analysts, journalists, doctors, and campaigners begin exposing adulteration with increasing force. Chemists test samples, newspapers describe abuses, laws gradually strengthen. The Adulteration of Food and Drink Act of 1860 and later measures mark steps toward better control, though enforcement and effectiveness improve unevenly. By the later 19th century, regulation becomes more serious, but the customer still often stands in a shop relying on reputation, price, smell, taste, and the hope that nobody has decided profit is more important than the liver. Poorer shoppers face the hardest bargain. Cheap food may be necessary, not foolish. If wages are low and rent is due, the lowest priced loaf, milk, tea, or dripping may be the only practical choice. Adulteration therefore falls most heavily on those with the least power to avoid it. A wealthy household may buy from trusted suppliers, send servants to select goods, and complain if standards fall. A poor family may discover watered milk only after the baby remains hungry, or weak tea only after the leaves have surrendered twice and are being asked to serve again out of sheer embarrassment. You step closer to the counter and smell sugar, paper, spice, and the faint sharpness of dyes or flavourings. The sweet still looks delightful. This is the problem with danger when it has good presentation. Food is emotional. It is not only fuel. A bright sweet is a small luxury in a hard week. A cup of tea is comfort. White bread is pride. Milk is strength. Butter is kindness on a cold morning. To adulterate food is not only to cheat the purse, it is to tamper with trust at the table. It means the mother stretching coins cannot be certain the milk is nourishing. It means the worker buying supper cannot know whether cheapness hides fraud. It means the child receiving a treat from the jar may be accepting a little coloured risk wrapped in joy. Victorian people are not naive about this. They worry, joke, test, complain, and build habits of caution. A trusted grocer matters. A known baker matters. Reputation is not merely politeness. It is a food safety system with a moustache and an account book. Still, temptation remains. You buy the sweet, or perhaps you do not. Perhaps you choose the plain one, because plainness seems less likely to have studied chemistry in a dark room. Outside, the child beside you clutches a paper bag with happiness too sincere to regulate. The city is learning, slowly, to make food safer through science and law. Until then, appetite must keep one eye open. In Victorian England, even a boiled sweet can look a little too pleased with itself. The house has gone quiet, the mirrors may be covered, and black fabric has begun its long occupation of the wardrobe. Victorian mourning, especially among middle-class and upper-class families, can be elaborate, expensive, public and exhausting. There are stages, fabrics, jewellery, stationery, visiting rules, social limits, and expectations that grief should be visible enough for others to measure. Queen Victoria's long mourning after Prince Albert gives the century a powerful example, but ordinary families adapt the customs according to money, faith, class, and need. Real sorrow is present, of course. So is the strange labour of displaying it correctly. You fasten black crepe and discover that even heartbreak has been given instructions. The room feels altered, though the furniture is the same. Chairs stand where they stood yesterday. The clock ticks with offensive normality. A cup sits near the bed. Curtains hang heavy in the grey light. Yet everything now seems to belong to a slower world. Death has entered the house, and the living must reorganise themselves around absence. In Victorian England, this reorganisation can be highly visible. Black clothing signals loss. Letters may be written on mourning stationery edged in black. Visiting may stop or be limited. Social life narrows, jewellery changes, curtains may be drawn, mirrors may be covered in some households, depending on family habit. The bereaved do not simply feel grief. They wear it, write on it, sit inside it, and carry it through the street so others know how carefully to approach. For widows, the expectations can be especially strict. Full mourning may require dull black fabrics, heavy crepe, veils, bonnets, gloves, and a withdrawal from bright social life. Later stages may soften into black silk, grey, lavender, mauve, or white touches depending on the relationship and period. The exact rules vary, and not every family follows etiquette books perfectly, but the books are very happy to explain what should happen. A widow may remain in deep mourning for a long period, and even after the strictest stage passes, the world may watch what she wears, where she goes, whom she sees, and how soon she appears to laugh. A man's mourning is often less restrictive, at least in dress and duration, which is convenient for men and less convenient for the theory that sorrow should be measured evenly. Class matters constantly. Mourning can be expensive. Black garments, bonnets, veils, gloves, ribbons, stationery, memorial cards, funeral expenses, and jewellery all cost money. A wealthy family may dress the whole household, including servants, in mourning. A poorer family may dye existing clothes, borrow, simplify, or wear whatever black can be managed. Grief may be equally deep, but fabric does not always understand equality. A working woman cannot always withdraw from labour because her husband, child, parent, or sibling has died. Rent still arrives. Food still costs. Laundry does not pause out of respect. A servant may lose someone dear and still be expected to answer bells in a subdued tone, as if her sorrow must also be in service. Mourning customs can offer structure, and that structure may comfort. When grief is shapeless, a rule can feel like a railing in the dark. Wear this. Write that. Receive no callers yet. Take time. Do not hurry back into gaiety. Let the world know you are wounded. In an age when death is often close, from disease, childbirth, accidents, infant mortality, industrial danger, and poor sanitation, rituals help people make sense of repeated loss. Funerals, mourning dress, keepsakes, cemetery visits, death notices, memorial cards, and household objects all create a language for absence. The Victorians are sometimes accused of loving death, but that is too easy. Many are surrounded by it. They do not love it. They learn to live beside it with rules, textiles, prayer, photographs, hair, flowers, and a great deal of black cloth. Still, rules can become burdens. You may feel real sorrow and still be tired of the veil. You may want to remember privately, not turn your body into a public notice board. You may resent the neighbour who observes whether your sleeves are correct. You may notice that the dead are mourned differently depending on status, money, age, and legitimacy. A child's death may be both devastating and grimly familiar in some households. A prominent man's funeral may fill streets. A poor person may be buried with little ceremony, and grief may be folded quickly back into work. Mourning is tender, but it is also social. It asks who is worth display, who can afford the proper signs, who is allowed time. You fasten the black fabric and feel its texture against your skin. Crepe is dull, stiff, and sombre, well suited to a society that believes sorrow should not shine. The garment changes how others speak to you. Voices lower, faces soften or stiffen. Some people avoid you because grief makes them awkward. Others approach with prepared phrases that fall gently and do not always help. You accept condolences. Outside, life continues in a way that seems almost rude. Carts pass, shops open, children laugh. Someone sells oranges in the street, apparently unaware that your world has ended. Slowly, perhaps, the black becomes less absolute. The house admits more light. Visits resume. The wardrobe loosens its grip. But for now, you move quietly through rooms where absence has more presence than furniture. Victorian mourning gives grief a costume, a schedule, and a set of rules. The heart, inconsiderately, keeps its own appointments. In a drawer lined with tissue, a brooch rests quietly, woven from the hair of someone loved, lost, or remembered with remarkable patience. Victorian hair jewellery can seem startling now, but in a world where death often visits early and photographs are precious, hair offers a physical keepsake that does not fade like ink or flowers. Locks are saved, braided, framed, worn, exchanged, and turned into memorial art. It is intimate, tender, and slightly alarming if encountered without warning while looking for a handkerchief. Mourning culture asks objects to carry memory, and hair is almost unbearably personal. You hold the brooch to the light and realise the Victorians are not simply being strange. They are trying not to forget. The strands catch the light with a soft brown shine, or perhaps black, gold, auburn, grey, or a faded colour that once belonged to someone who sat in this room, wrote letters, laughed at poor jokes, complained about the weather, and had no idea their hair would one day be arranged into a pattern with a clasp. It feels both delicate and startlingly present. A photograph shows a face, if the family can afford one, and if the image survives. A letter preserves a voice in ink. A grave marks a place, but hair feels like the person. It grew from the body. It was brushed, pinned, washed, cut, saved. It does not vanish quickly. For Victorians, this makes it precious. For you, Holding it in a quiet drawer, it makes the room feel a little crowded. Hairwork has a long history before the Victorian period, but it becomes especially popular in the 19th century, helped by mourning customs, sentimental culture, magazines, instruction books, professional jewellers, and the growth of keepsake objects that can be worn, displayed, or tucked safely away. Hair can be woven into bracelets, watch chains, rings, brooches, wreaths, lockets, and framed designs. Some pieces are memorial, made after death. Others are tokens of affection exchanged between living people, lovers, relatives, friends, or family members separated by distance. A lock of hair in a locket can travel where the person cannot. This is useful in a century of migration, military service, domestic service, sea voyages, railway journeys, and families scattered by work. Sentiment needs transport too, and hair is surprisingly portable. You look closely at the workmanship. The hair may be plaited, looped, curled, woven, or arranged into flowers, knots, initials, or delicate patterns that require patience bordering on diplomatic service. Some women make pieces at home, following instructions in magazines or manuals. Professional hairworkers and jewellers also produce more elaborate designs, sometimes using hair supplied by the family, sometimes, less romantically, perhaps not as much of the exact beloved hair as the customer imagines. Even grief has supply problems. The object may include gold, jet, enamel, seed pearls, black glass, or a compartment for a lock. Jet, especially associated with mourning jewellery, becomes fashionable, with Whitby jet prized for its deep black polish. Not every mourner can afford fine jewellery, so cheaper materials circulate too. Memory, like fashion, comes in different price ranges. To modern eyes, hair jewellery can feel macabre because many modern households keep death at a greater distance, at least physically. The dead are often cared for by professionals, viewed briefly, and separated from daily rooms. In Victorian life, death more often happens at home, in beds, nurseries, sick rooms, and familiar spaces. The body may remain in the house before burial. Family members may wash, watch, mourn, and prepare. Children may see death early. Parents may bury children. Wives may bury husbands. Siblings may vanish from the table. Keepsakes are not strange decorations for people obsessed with gloom. They are tools for surviving absence when absence visits often. A curl of hair can be proof. This person was here. This person was touched. This person belonged to us. There is tenderness in that, even if the brooch does make you pause before putting it near your collar. You may own hair from a child, a spouse, a parent, or a friend. Perhaps the lock was cut during illness, saved after death, or given before a journey. Perhaps it rests in a locket worn under clothing, close to the skin, where public mourning becomes private contact. Perhaps it sits framed on a parlour wall surrounded by written names and dates, making family history visible to visitors who now have something solemn to admire between tea and the weather. Victorian parlours are full of objects that carry feeling. Photographs, memorial cards, albums, pressed flowers, embroidered samplers, Bibles, souvenirs, shells, silhouettes, and little things that would be meaningless if they belonged to strangers. The hair brooch belongs among them, though it may win first prize for commitment. You close your fingers around it carefully. The object is not loud. It does not wail. It simply remains. That is its power. Flowers fade. Black clothes wear out. Condolence letters are folded away. But this small woven thing keeps insisting that love once had texture. It also raises practical questions no etiquette book fully answers, such as how much of a person can be turned into jewellery before a dinner guest becomes uneasy. Still, the feeling beneath it is clear. Victorian mourning may seem elaborate, but grief often looks for somewhere to live. Here it has chosen a brooch. The parlour is dim, the curtains are drawn, and everyone around the table is trying very hard to look open-minded without appearing foolish. Spiritualism becomes popular in parts of Victorian society, offering raps, messages, seances, mediums, automatic writing, and the hope that the dead may still be reachable through methods involving patience and furniture. Some people come from grief, some come from curiosity. Some come because being frightened in company is more respectable than being frightened alone. The same age that builds railways and studies electricity also leaves room for unseen forces and unanswered questions. A knock sounds beneath the table. No one breathes. The table, it seems, has asked to join the conversation. You sit with your hands resting lightly beside the others, aware of the polished wood beneath your fingers and the small sounds the room usually hides. A coal shifts in the grate, a skirt rustles. Someone clears a throat and then regrets having a throat at all. The lamp is turned low, partly for atmosphere and partly because spirits, like certain relatives, appear to prefer flattering light. Across from you, the medium sits composed, patient, and faintly theatrical. Spiritualism attracts believers, frauds, skeptics, scientists, bereaved parents, bored guests, devout questioners, and people who insist they are only attending to expose nonsense while arriving precisely on time. The movement begins in the United States in the middle of the 19th century and spreads across the Atlantic, where Britain proves ready for mysterious knocks, moving tables, trance messages, and the idea that death may have left a forwarding address. It is easy to laugh at the séance table, especially when it begins behaving like an elderly uncle with secrets. But the room is not only ridiculous, it is also full of grief. Victorian families lose children, spouses, siblings, and friends to diseases and dangers that modern life has softened. A mother who has buried a child may not come to the séance because she is silly. She may come because ordinary comfort has not reached far enough. A widower may sit in the dark hoping for one word, one sign, one knock that means the door between worlds is badly fitted rather than locked forever. Spiritualism offers something churches, doctors, and memorial jewellery cannot always provide: conversation. It promises not only that the dead live on, but that they may be contacted through a person in the next chair who charges a fee and prefers the curtains closed. This mixture of tenderness and theatre is very Victorian. The same century that loves classification, chemistry, telegraphy, photography, geology, and electrical experiments also loves the possibility that invisible forces surround ordinary life. If a message can travel through wires, why not through ether, spirit, or some undiscovered medium? If a photograph can capture a face, why not capture a ghostly presence? Science expands the imagination as much as it narrows it. New discoveries make the unseen feel more plausible, not less. Electricity is invisible until it acts. Magnetism is invisible until it moves something. Germs are invisible until they kill. The 19th century learns that the world is full of hidden powers. Spiritualism simply invites the hidden powers to knock politely on the furniture. You hear another rap. The medium asks questions. 1 knock for yes, 2 for no, 3 perhaps for a spirit with poor table manners. Someone gasps. Someone counts carefully. Someone else suspects the medium's foot, which is rude but not historically unreasonable. Fraud does exist. Tricks with toes, knees, wires, hidden accomplices, manipulated tables, prepared cabinets, and ghostly cloth can produce wonders for audiences eager to believe or eager to be fooled in an interesting way. Exposures appear. Skeptics investigate. Some scientists and intellectuals take the subject seriously, because the possibility seems worth testing. Others dismiss it as deception, delusion, or parlour amusement. Meanwhile, people keep coming, because certainty is not the only thing people seek in a dim room. Sometimes they seek permission to hope. Women play important roles as mediums. This is striking in a society that often limits women's public authority. A female medium can speak in trance, deliver messages, command a room, challenge religious ideas, and earn money, all while claiming the words come from elsewhere. That claim can protect her and empower her at the same time. The spirit world, conveniently, is less troubled by male permission than the earthly one. This does not mean all mediums are sincere or all séances liberating, but it does mean the séance parlour gives some women a voice in a culture that usually prefers them quieter. The table trembles. Perhaps someone moved it. Perhaps everyone moved it without meaning to. Perhaps grief has weight, and the body expresses what the mouth cannot say. You sit in the hush while the medium announces a presence. A name is guessed, a memory is offered. A mourner leans forward, and for a moment the joke leaves the room. There is only longing, held carefully in the dim light. Then the table knocks again, with timing almost too good for its reputation. You leave later unsure what happened. You are certain only that the parlour has been used for many purposes in Victorian life: tea, music, courtship, reading, mourning, and now furniture diplomacy with the beyond. If the dead truly spoke, they chose a curious instrument. If they did not, the living still revealed how badly they wanted an answer. Either way, the table had a busy evening. The photographer arranges your head, adjusts the light, tells you to remain still, and makes the entire family look as if it is waiting for legal judgment. Victorian photography becomes increasingly common and precious, giving ordinary people a way to preserve faces, marriages, uniforms, children, milestones, and sometimes the dead. Early photographic processes require patience, expense, and posture. Smiling is not forbidden, but it is often impractical, unfashionable, or simply too much to sustain while holding still. The result can look severe to modern eyes, even when everyone involved is merely concentrating on not ruining a costly portrait. You stare at the lens, neck stiff, expression solemn. Happiness will have to be inferred by descendants. The studio smells faintly of varnish, dust, warm lamps, chemicals, old fabric, and the nervous hope of families who have dressed carefully for a machine they do not fully trust. A painted backdrop suggests a column, a curtain, a garden, or some other improvement to reality. A chair waits with carved arms. A small table holds a book no one intends to read. The photographer moves around you with quiet authority, arranging bodies into order. Father seated, mother beside him, children placed by height, obedience, and ability to remain briefly human. A baby may be held still by a hidden hand, which gives some portraits the eerie feeling that the furniture has become maternal. The camera itself stands on its tripod like a serious visitor from the future, draped, polished, and unwilling to be rushed. Earlier in the century, photographic portraits are expensive and slow, but improvements make them more available. Daguerreotypes, ambrotypes, tintypes, carte de visite, and cabinet cards all help spread the practice in different forms. By the later Victorian period, many more people can afford at least occasional photographs. This matters. For families who may never own painted portraits, photography offers a new kind of memory. It fixes a face before illness, age, migration, war, work, childbirth, or ordinary time changes it. A son leaving for employment, a daughter entering service, a soldier in uniform, a newly married couple, a child in Sunday clothes, a proud tradesman, an elderly parent, all can be held in an image and sent, saved, displayed, or tucked into an album. The family album becomes a small paper household where distant relatives sit quietly beside people who have not spoken in years. The process still asks for cooperation. Even when exposure times grow shorter, the studio expects stillness. That is why smiles are rare in many portraits. Not because Victorians lack joy, teeth, or a working understanding of amusement. Holding a natural smile while remaining still can be difficult, and a solemn expression fits ideas of dignity. A photograph is not a casual moment. It is an event. You have paid for it. You have dressed for it. You may have travelled for it. You do not want future grandchildren saying, with great confidence, that their ancestor looked blurred because he was overcome by cheerfulness. So you sit straight and let gravity do the expression. Children are a particular challenge. A child may fidget, blink, scratch, lean, laugh, cry, or develop an urgent fascination with the floor at exactly the wrong second. The photographer may use clamps, stands, props, toys, persuasion, or the desperate whisper of a parent promising something sweet afterward. Mothers smooth collars, fathers attempt calm. Everyone learns that immortality requires not moving your nose. There are also photographs of the dead, which can feel startling now, but make sense in a world where death is closer and photography may be rare. A family might not have had a portrait of a child while alive, and a post-mortem photograph becomes the only image. These pictures are often made with care, grief, and tenderness, not ghoulish delight. They belong to the same world as mourning jewellery, black-edged letters, and saved locks of hair. Memory is being made with whatever tools the century has managed to invent before the person vanished. You watch the photographer prepare the plate or manage the equipment, depending on the process. There is chemistry behind the magic. Silver salts, glass plates, collodion, albumin paper, careful timing, developing, fixing, washing, drying, mounting. The finished image may be sepia, sharp, soft, ghosted at the edges, or marked by the tiny accidents of light and movement. It is science, art, trade, theatre, and family ambition packed into one stiff appointment. The photographer is part technician, part director, part diplomat, and part patient shepherd of uncomfortable relatives. At last he tells you to hold still. The room pauses. Someone stops breathing too much. A child widens his eyes. A sleeve is corrected one final time. The lens looks back without mercy. Then it is done, or at least done enough that everyone can exhale and return to being less historically useful. Weeks or days later, the portrait may be collected, admired, criticised, framed, exchanged, or placed in an album where it will begin its long career of making descendants guess personalities from eyebrows. You leave the studio slightly tired, faintly proud, and possibly convinced you looked more cheerful in real life. The photograph will not record your joke afterward, your relief, your sore neck, or the photographer's muttered battle with the child on the left. It will preserve the solemn version. Posterity, as usual, has arrived while everyone was trying not to blink. The sea is bright, the wind is sharp, and a bathing machine waits on the sand like a small hut that has lost confidence and grown wheels. Victorian seaside holidays become increasingly popular as railways carry more people toward the coast, where salt air promises health, scenery, and recreation under the watchful eye of propriety. Bathing, especially for women, may involve heavy costumes, privacy screens, attendants, segregated areas, and machinery designed to let a person enter the water without causing society to clutch its pearls too tightly. The result is healthy, bracing, and occasionally ridiculous. You step from the machine into the waves wearing fabric that drinks the sea with commitment. Recreation has arrived, and it is heavier than expected. The beach is alive with sound, gulls crying overhead, wheels creaking over sand, children shouting, donkeys shifting patiently, vendors calling, waves dragging shingle back with a soft rattle, and families pretending that wind-blown discomfort is almost the same as health. A railway station nearby has changed everything. Once a seaside visit required money, time, and travel sturdy enough to discourage the casual. As railways expand, more people can reach coastal towns for holidays, day trips, and excursions. Blackpool, Brighton, Margate, Scarborough, Ramsgate, and other resorts grow into places of lodging houses, promenades, piers, entertainments, bathing, fresh air, and respectable escape. Doctors and guidebooks praise sea air and sea bathing for weak nerves, poor lungs, low spirits, fragile children, and conditions that may chiefly involve needing to leave the city for a while. This is very understandable. After coal smoke, damp streets, crowded rooms, and workdays that seem personally opposed to the spine, the sea looks like medicine with waves. But Victorian pleasure still travels with rules. Men and women may bathe separately depending on place and time. Modesty must be protected even from the ocean, which has never shown much interest in etiquette. The bathing machine helps manage the problem. You enter it on the beach, change inside, and are rolled toward the water by horse or human effort. Once the machine reaches the shallows, you descend discreetly, sometimes with the help of a bathing woman or attendant known in some resorts as a dipper. The machine shields you from public view, in theory. In practice, it is a wooden box being dragged into the sea, while everyone politely pretends this is more private than it looks. The bathing costume itself is not built for graceful floating. Women may wear woolen or flannel garments, often including drawers, tunics, stockings, shoes, caps, and enough fabric to turn a swim into a negotiation with laundry. Men's bathing clothes can be simpler, though propriety still changes over time and place. Once wet, wool becomes heavy, clingy, cold, and earnest. You move into the water and feel the costume pull downward with the firm opinion of a small anchor. A wave breaks against you. The attendant may encourage, steady, or dunk you depending on local custom, confidence, and the belief that health improves when seawater enters the argument quickly. You gasp. It is bracing, which is the word people use when cold water has been allowed to assault them for medical reasons. Yet there is joy here. Real joy. The sea opens the horizon. Children dig in sand. Families walk the promenade. Couples stroll under public supervision. Musicians play. Photographers offer portraits. Shops sell shells, sweets, hats, postcards, bathing shoes, and souvenirs that will later gather dust with moral pride. Donkey rides, pier shows, cheap amusements, and warm paper parcels of food help turn the coast into a place where ordinary people can briefly feel expanded by the view. For working people, especially later in the century as excursions and bank holidays become more common, the seaside can mean a precious break from labour, even if that break begins before dawn with a packed lunch and tired boots. Not everyone can afford long stays, and class still shapes where you sleep, eat, walk, and sit. But the train makes the coast imaginable to many more people. A day at the sea can become memory, relief, and proof that life contains more than brick and wages. You come out of the water colder, heavier, and perhaps healthier by sheer force of inconvenience. The bathing machine waits to receive you again, its wet steps slippery and its interior smelling of damp wood, salt, wool, and human determination. Changing back into dry clothes in a small rolling hut while the wind shakes the walls is not effortless, but it is respectable, and respectability is fond of awkward containers. On the beach, the air tastes sharp. Your cheeks sting. Your hair has escaped in small rebellious pieces. Someone insists you look refreshed, which is kind, though not necessarily accurate. You may drink tea afterward, eat something warm, walk along the promenade, or sit beneath a shelter while sand finds its way into places no reform movement has yet addressed. The sea has done its work. It has washed, chilled, startled, and improved you, or at least given you something to describe in letters. By evening, the wet costume will need drying, the shoes will need attention, and the bathing machine will roll another hopeful body toward propriety and waves. Victorian recreation has met nature and insisted on bringing a changing room. The room smells of greenery, candles, oranges, pudding, warm spice, and a faint anxiety about whether the decorations have achieved sufficient cheer. Many customs now associated with an old-fashioned Christmas grow stronger or become widely popular in Victorian Britain, helped by royal example, printed cards, gifts, family gatherings, charitable feeling, decorated trees, and stories that make the hearth glow with purpose. Christmas becomes domestic, sentimental, commercial, generous, and slightly demanding all at once. There is comfort in it, real comfort, especially during a dark winter. There is also work. Food must be prepared, cards sent, gifts chosen, relatives managed, and children delighted. Peace on earth begins with someone finding the raisins. You stand near the table and feel the room gathering itself into celebration. Holly is tucked where holly can be tucked. Ivy trails with a confidence usually seen in ambitious relatives. A tree, if the household keeps one, may stand dressed with candles, sweets, paper ornaments, small gifts, ribbons, and the constant quiet danger of combining flame with enthusiasm. The Christmas tree becomes fashionable in Britain after royal influence helps popularise it, especially through images of Queen Victoria, Prince Albert, and their family. It is not invented by the Victorians, but they give it a strong place in the domestic imagination. Soon it looks as if Christmas has always required a decorated tree, which is how traditions often behave once they have found good lighting. The season changes through print, commerce, family ritual, and public feeling. Christmas cards appear in the 19th century and grow in popularity as printing improves and postal systems make sending greetings easier. Some early cards show cheerful scenes, food, flowers, winter images, humour, children, and occasionally designs that feel strange later, because the past enjoys keeping one foot outside our expectations. Gift-giving becomes more common and more organised, especially among the middle classes. Shops encourage it with windows full of toys, books, gloves, games, sweets, ornaments and objects that whisper that affection should really have a receipt. Charles Dickens helps shape the emotional climate too, especially with A Christmas Carol in the 1840s, presenting Christmas as a time of family warmth, memory, charity, food, forgiveness, and the moral improvement of people who have been rude to clerks. The story does not invent Christmas feeling, but it gives it one of its most powerful Victorian voices. The story around you the household must translate feeling into labour. The pudding needs time. The goose, beef, ham, mince pies, cakes, sauces, vegetables, and whatever else the family can afford must be planned, bought, carried, prepared, cooked, served, and praised. Poorer families may manage a smaller feast or depend on clubs, charity, savings, or luck to make the day special. Wealthier tables may glow with abundance. Servants may work harder than usual to create a holiday from which they themselves receive only carefully measured portions of rest. In some homes, servants are given gifts, boxes, extra food, or time off, but the timing of comfort often favours those who sit before it, favours those who scrub the pans afterward. Christmas warmth is real, but someone has to keep the fire fed. Children are at the bright centre of the Victorian Christmas imagination. Their delight becomes part of the season's purpose. Toys, stockings, games, sweets, picture books, crackers and surprises all gather around the idea that childhood should be protected and charmed, at least for a day. This can be tender and lovely. It can also place heavy pressure on adults with small purses. A parent may count coins and choose between practical warmth and a toy that will make a child's face open like sunrise. Charity becomes part of the season as well. Wealthier households may give food, money, coal, blankets, or gifts to poorer neighbours, servants, parish families, or institutions. This generosity can be sincere. It can also carry the slight stiffness of a society that prefers poverty to arrive at the door in a grateful mood, and not ask complicated questions about January. You listen as family gathers. Someone tunes the piano. Someone argues gently about a decoration. A child sneaks near the sweets with the stealth of a small burglar in festive clothing. The room glows with candles and firelight. Outside, the streets are cold, dark, and perhaps noisy with vendors, bells, carts, and people hurrying through winter air. Inside, the home is asked to become a little theatre of belonging. This is why the Victorian Christmas feels so enduring. It gathers the century's favourite ideas: family, hearth, memory, duty, charity, children, food, print, shopping, music, and moral feeling. It turns them into a season and ties them with ribbon. The result can be beautiful. It can also be a great deal to manage. If the pudding fails, the cards are late, the tree sheds needles, the relatives quarrel, the goose is expensive, the children become overexcited, and the candles threaten the curtains, the holiday may still be described afterward as peaceful, because people enjoy having a goal. You hold a warm cup, smell spice and smoke, and watch the room settle. For a little while the world beyond the windows softens. The poor are not suddenly safe, the lonely not all gathered in, the overworked not permanently rested, but the day offers warmth where it can. A song begins. A child laughs. Someone finally finds the raisins. Christmas has not solved Victorian life. It has merely dressed it in greenery and asked everyone to pass the pudding kindly. Night settles over the street, and the gas lamps glow through a mist that softens the houses without improving the smell. Somewhere in the darkness, practical people continue the less romantic work of the city, collecting waste, tending lamps, watching streets, managing horses, cleaning, and keeping civilization from admitting how much effort it requires after sunset. In your room, the fire sinks lower, the washstand waits, the chamber pot has returned to relevance with its usual confidence. Outside, wheels pass, footsteps fade, and the Victorian world folds itself into soot, silence, labour, and sleep. The day has been full of progress, manners, discomfort, grief, tea, smoke, and rules. You climb into bed beneath heavy covers, grateful for rest and mildly concerned about the wallpaper. The room is colder now, and the shadows have become more certain of themselves. A fire that seemed lively earlier has settled into a red glow, giving just enough warmth to make the corners feel personally neglected. The curtains hang still. The basin is empty or waiting to be emptied. A chair holds clothes in a careful heap that will, by morning, look less like order and more like a small fabric disagreement. The house creaks in the ordinary way houses do when everyone is too tired to interpret them dramatically. Somewhere below, a servant may be finishing the last tasks of the evening, banking the fire, checking locks, clearing dishes, carrying water, folding cloths, or preparing for a morning that will arrive with no interest in excuses. In a poorer home, the same late labour may belong to a mother, daughter, lodger, wife, or child still putting away the day after paid work has ended. Victorian sleep is not equally distributed. Some people sink into feather beds behind thick curtains. Others share narrow rooms, lodging house beds, servants' quarters, attic spaces, cellar rooms, workhouse wards, or corners where rest negotiates with damp, noise, hunger, or too many bodies. Yet everywhere, night asks the same basic thing. Stop moving if you can. The gas lamps outside give the street a new kind of life. Gas lighting changes towns and cities through the century, making streets, shops, theatres, and homes brighter after dark. It improves safety, extends business, and gives evening a glow that previous generations would have found impressive. It also hisses, smells, leaks, needs tending, and gives shadows a theatrical confidence. Lamplighters move through streets at dusk and again later, part of the quiet army that makes urban life appear orderly. Police patrol. Night watchmen, porters, cabmen, railway workers, printers, bakers, nurses, dock workers, servants, and others continue working while respectable sleep imagines itself universal. A city at night is never truly asleep. It is only quieter in the areas that can afford quiet. You listen from bed as the last traffic thins. A cab rolls past. Hooves strike the stones with a slower rhythm. A door closes. A man's voice disappears around a corner. Somewhere a dog objects to the moon, a stranger, or the general direction of history. Waste collectors and night soil workers may move in the darker hours, handling what daylight prefers not to discuss. Ashes, refuse, manure, and human waste all belong to the hidden maintenance of the world you have been walking through. Clean streets, working drains, lit lamps, delivered bread, morning fires, washed steps, polished boots, and emptied pots do not happen because civilization is naturally tidy. They happen because people work at inconvenient hours for wages that rarely match the usefulness of their labour. Night reveals this if you listen carefully. It is full of people making mourning possible for others. The bedroom itself is not entirely free from the century's anxieties. Wallpaper may be beautiful, crowded with flowers, vines, birds, or patterns holding a meeting. Some green wallpapers and fabrics earlier in the century use arsenic-based pigments, which becomes a real concern as awareness grows. Not every green wall is a villain, and not every household is quietly being poisoned by decoration, but the possibility gives cheerful wallpaper a rather complicated personality. Heavy fabrics collect dust. Candles and lamps require caution. Fires must be managed. Windows may be shut against cold, smoke, or fear of night air. The room is meant to be restful, but it contains all the ordinary negotiations of Victorian comfort. Warmth against ventilation, privacy against stuffiness, beauty against cleanliness, thrift against safety, and the question of whether the house smells like itself or something has gone wrong. You pull the covers up and feel their weight. Heavy bedding can be a comfort, especially when the room is cold. It presses the day down gently. Your feet find a warmer place. Your eyes adjust to the faint light. The world you have moved through since morning begins to drift back in fragments. Coal smoke at the window, cold water in the basin, the bell below stairs, horses in the road, a calling card on a tray, a schoolroom blot, a workhouse bowl, a medicine bottle, black crepe, a hair brooch, a tapping table, a solemn photograph, wet wool at the seaside, Christmas candles, and now the gas lamp glowing outside like a tired star with municipal duties. You breathe in the cool room and listen as the house settles. Tomorrow will bring coal, water, bells, boots, manners, errands, work, meals, smells, and more small negotiations with progress. For now, the city dims. The lamp burns. The wallpaper behaves itself, or at least does so quietly. Sleep arrives, properly dressed and faintly smelling of soot. And now, you can let Victorian England grow quiet. You have walked through coal-smoked bedrooms, cold wash water, chamber pots, servant bells, muddy crossings, horse-filled streets, jolting omnibuses, calling cards, shop windows, school benches, workhouse bowls, chemist bottles, mourning clothes, hair jewellery, seaside bathing machines, Christmas rooms, gas lamps, and wallpaper that may have had more confidence than it deserved. You have seen a world proud of progress, yet still bargaining with soot, drains, damp wool, bad air, unsafe food, stiff collars, heavy skirts, hard benches, and rules so careful they could make a teacup nervous. There is gentle absurdity in it all. A table should not have to help with messages from the beyond. A bathing machine should not be required to introduce you politely to the sea. A sweet should not look quite so pleased with its own colouring. But beneath those strange little customs were real people, carrying real days. They lit fires before dawn, scrubbed steps, fetched water, nursed the sick, taught children, stretched wages, waited on bells, crossed dirty streets, buried loved ones, saved small keepsakes, wrote careful cards, and kept going with more patience than comfort. So as you return slowly to your own room, perhaps you can feel quietly grateful for the ordinary mercies around you. Clean water, safer food, warm light, softer clothes, easier washing, a bathroom that does not require a household negotiation, an air that is hopefully not having a private dispute with the chimney. Not smugly grateful, just gently aware. The past was not foolish. It was full of people doing their best with the tools, rules, fears, and hopes they had been given. Now the gas lamps fade. The hooves grow distant. The fire sinks low. The old street settles beneath mist and soot. You are back here, safe under your own blanket with nothing more to carry tonight. Let the strange century close its curtains. Let the old house sleep, and let yourself rest.